And then, so welcome to A Few Quiet Yarns. I've just pressed the record button. I'm going to pop everyone into the first breakout room. So we've got 34. So I'll give you a call in 5 minutes. Enjoy meeting the people you get put in the room with. See you soon. And then everyone will disappear. This is just as much fun as watching everyone come in. Craig, Emma.
Hi Ryan, how are you?
Good.
Just go and correct my name on there always.
No worries. So I thought in honour of doing day one of level 1, tonight's beverage would have to be Corona.
Are they still selling that stuff? I thought the brewery had shut down, and there's a they're going to rebrand it to something less evocative, like I think they're going to call it measles or
so
or Spanish flu or something.
Welcome to those who are popping in. You are now in the main room. This is Craig Liddell and I just chatting about Corona. You are at AFQY. This is the Vision Week edition. And everyone has just been put into the first breakout room that was here. And you're stuck with me. It's not too bad because you've got everyone else. But we should be on unmute all. And this is our breakout room. So we can start with Craig. We'll just do a quick fire, say good day, who you are, and let everyone have a shot.
All right, okay. Yeah, I'm Craig Liddell, so I run Figure 8, and yeah, we do infrastructure IT. I just like jumping on these things just to meet and connect with people. Looking forward to getting back in the pub, Ryan, and yeah, just wouldn't miss it for all the world. So yeah, thank you very much.
No worries. Well, there's Michael Friedberg, who I think was at the first commercial AFQY ever. I always remember that one because that's when I asked people to come out of the light, and Sue Bridger from Microsoft finally stood out of the light, and I put my foot in it by saying, "Oh, I didn't recognise you last time I saw you. Your hair wasn't blonde," which set off a few interesting remarks from some of the most conservative people in the room, I must say. Katie running hysterics. But Michael, you're now with Mega, so over to you. Say a quick hello and we'll get the team.
Thanks, Ryan. Yep, that's going back a few years. But no, I was with IBM for many years, and then just recently just moved to Mega, the privacy company. Obviously, very interesting time for us, cloud storage and collaboration. So I'm in charge of, I'm the Group Chief Growth Officer, great title, but really setting up sales and marketing for them and building that kind of engine, especially offshore. So, you know, really nice story there for a New Zealand-based tech company, founder-driven, with 180 odd, million users globally, but still lots of work to do. So interested to join this conversation today and, partake of what the future could look like. Thank you, Ryan.
Good to have you here. And we've got Katie Grant. So we'll just try and get a few quick hellos in before I probably run out of the breakout room in a moment. So fire away, Katie.
Hey Ryan.
Nice to be here tonight. Thanks, Ryan. I only started coming to the AFQ events.
Why?
AFQY events since we were in lockdown. So this has been great. Loving these events, and I sell, or sorry, I shouldn't say I sell, should I? I work for Liberate IT. We work remotely anyway, so we're very used to working from home, and looking forward to seeing what's happening tonight.
Sweet. So let's go to Anthony Dyer from Auckland Transport, bit of a regular.
Sorry, I've been over for a while.
Oh, hang on. Your speaker might need, or your microphone might need a little bit of work. We're getting a very dark beta voice. Yeah. Anthony Dyer.
Hang on. Let me just see if I can just push
That's not working.
It's getting slower.
Hang on.
Awesome.
I question whether it's really Anthony and it's just someone masking him.
That's a good question, Neil. Test it now, Anthony. No? Okay. Well, look, what I'll do now is welcome everybody because the room's filling up again. Welcome to A Few Quiet Yarns. I'm Ryan the Lion, your host and founder of A Few Quiet Yarns. This is Vision Week. Half the people are already in breakout rooms at the moment, so I'm going to press the button and pull them back in, and you'll see the screen populate with lots more people like yourself. Thank you for being here. We're going to kick off at 5:15 sharp. We're going to have a range of lightning talks from speakers that are going to be 5 minutes to give you some inspiration. But what the big juice is here is that we want to talk about how tech can enable the recovery of our economy. A lot of shovel-ready projects, and I think 4 billion roughly has been put towards the, I guess, digging dirt and putting concrete in it, to be really blunt and plain and horrible. And what I want to see with the rest of the 20 billion is something that's tech-focused, and I've got my ideas, but you're going to be telling us your ideas. So with that, I will pull everyone back out of breakout rooms, and we'll get everyone in here. Okay, and I'm just going to mute all for a little minute. So, right. So as everyone comes back in, I'm just watching the numbers tick up. Thank you very much for being here at A Few Quiet Yarns, the special edition Vision Week NZ. I do want to get in there before I forget, because I always forget. Please take a photo, please take a screenshot and share your experience this evening. More so about what the vision for New Zealand is, not about AFQY, definitely not about me, but about the discussion, because Vision Week NZ is all about getting everybody's ideas out there and collaborating around what we could be doing around the Great Reset, the $20 billion that hasn't been spent. And of course, we all know in tech that tech was our third largest exporter, probably our second now that tourism is obviously going down a bit. And therefore, you know, we could be getting a 10 times return by setting up a whole range of things that enable it. So let me just check how we're doing. Looks like we've got everyone back in the room. So what I'm going to do is put you all back into new breakout rooms. So you should get a new bubble of 4 new people. And the idea is just quick fire, introduce yourself to begin with, so you know names and whatnot. Try it, no hogging the airtime like I am right now. Like, to get in there and get to know each other. We'll be starting at 5:15, so I'll pull you back out at 5:15. So we've got, and everyone laughs when I do this, we've got 55 people. So I'm going to go for recreate. Okay, so see you soon. All right, enjoy those breakout rooms. Get to meet your fellow attendee, and we will be back soon. And I'm just going to take everyone off mute. So if anyone who's left in here, this can be the main room. So we've got Ashley, Lisa, Katie. I'm trying to take you off mute, but all participants are muted. So Lisa, Katie, you can now unmute yourself and have a bit of a chat. I've just got to go and do a couple of checks. So please unmute yourself and enjoy having a chat. There
we go. Yay!
Honestly, I had pressed the
technology.
I had pressed the unmute all button, which is right here in front of me,
Yeah.
right down there. And I just thought it's over to you to now mute yourself because I've given you.
No, I wouldn't let us do it. Oh, hang on, the dogs are going mad.
That's all right. That's all right.
The dogs have been going mad all day.
I will let you all catch up, and I will go and just check where a couple of people are, including us speakers.
Thank you. How's everyone going?
Well, how are you?
It'd be great if my dogs weren't going mad at the phantom person at the door all day. It's about the 20th time today that my dogs decided to do, both of them. The little one just follows the big one and just, yeah. So how's everyone? It's a good first day of level 1. Everyone good and happy?
I haven't even left the house today. I feel like
Me neither. Me neither.
Where are you based?
I'm on the shore. I'm normally in the office, but I decided to, stay home today. Hi, Oksana.
Hi. Sorry, I'm driving. I'm in the traffic. Well, it's been not so well to be back.
Bear with me. I'm just going to go sort the dogs out.
Please do. Yeah. Alrighty. So we are on 5:14. Welcome to A Few Quiet Yarns. We are in the main room. Everybody else is already off in a breakout room. While we're in breakout rooms, it's just a quick fire, 5 minutes, hello, and check in and speak to each other, and get to know each other, meet the person. I'm just about to bring everybody out on 5:15 and get officially started for the evening, and have Paul Blair from Infrastructure NZ explain what Vision Week is, and then our Lightning Talks and you from the audience sharing your input as well. So I'll save it all for when we get everyone out of the breakout rooms. It looks like there's a bunch of people turning up now. Daniel McCarthy, Simon Thurlow. Pop your cameras on, please. So it saves me inviting you to do so. This is AFQY, so we want you to be really sociable. So I'll just, no one's there, got a video. Okay, so I'm going to bring everybody out of breakout rooms and we're going to get started. Hey, Mark, Mr. Leslie.
Hey, Ryan.
All right, so here we go. Everyone's been invited to come out of breakout rooms. We've got a really good group of people here, actually, and some looking forward to the input for the Vision Week, which will be quite a good wee session. So I'm just going to search, first of all, for So we are missing our guest of honour, Mr. Paul Blair from Infrastructure NZ. Bear with me while I just do a quick little recce on everything from text to and so while I'm going to look for Paul and get him the message, I'm also going to just share with everyone that welcome to A Few Quiet Yarns. I'm Ryan Ashton, we're on the line. A Few Quiet Yarns, as it sounds, is a very relaxed environment. So tonight will be very relaxed. We will have a range of speakers. We will invite you from the audience to share your thoughts, feedback, because this is a special event for Vision Week, which is a week-long event that the Infrastructure NZ has put on to get all the ideas and vision from everybody that wants to share what the government should be doing in terms of the reset. Hilton, I think you're typing, and I'm going to mute you because it's tapping away. That's all right. So I've just messaged Paul now, and we'll just say, where are you? With a winky face. He's probably been tied up. So Paul Blair, who is our opening the address and explaining Vision Week, is actually the CEO of Infrastructure NZ, which is responsible for running the whole Vision Week NZ. So he's been on interviews, been out doing bits and pieces, etc. So we'll absolutely forgive him. So just quickly, just wanted to remind everybody that I'd love you to take a screenshot, whatever you'd like, whether it's the gallery view, the speaker view, and the idea is to share your experience tonight and what part of the discussion really grabs you. so that we can get the message out there. Feel free to tag in Jacinda Ardern. She's connected to everybody on LinkedIn, so she would love all of us to tell her what we should be doing in regards to tech, and you can do that by sending a post with the hashtag VisionWeekNZ and tagging in Jacinda Ardern. So now I've got, I think I'm probably pretty safe to start with Paul Blair. No. Okay. So while we're waiting for Paul Blair, who is active but not responding at the moment, which means he'll be busy, just a quick run through of A Few Quiet Yarns. So A Few Quiet Yarns has been running for 12 years. It's been an in-person event until March 26th, the second day of lockdown. We went online. The premise of it is the tech industry, and there's a no selling rule. So while we're talking, you can talk about business, you can talk about concepts, you can talk about what you do, and if you're a salesperson, you can obviously say that because that's what you do. But what we don't want is people saying, I can sell you this Samsung with a bit of masking tape for $1,500. But you can talk about the concept of using telecommunications, data, etc., as part of what you do. So it's just not getting into the sell side of it. Traditionally, we would also, at a real life event, not allow people to ask, or not ask you not to ask what people do until the third question, because we want you to get to meet the person. So it's the funny about the kids, the cat and the dog, and that enables you to build a genuine relationship. So that then after that, when you're talking about the business, you're more like you're talking to your friend or your buddy, and you've got that element of rapport and trust built. So I'm just going to give one little... No, we've only got Mr. Paul Keesing here, and that's not Mr. Paul Blair. I wonder if... So, what we might do is I will just give you a brief rundown as best I can around what Vision Week is. So, actually, let's do a physical hands up as I flick through the screens if you know what Vision Week is about. Let's start. Does anyone know what Vision Week is? Hands up if you do. Okay. There's a few thumbs, hands, just going through. There's a few cups of tea, a few beverages. So Vision Week, and this is only my brief version of it, Vision Week is a week-long event that has been created by Infrastructure NZ. Infrastructure NZ is an organisation body, and obviously, as by the sounds of it, but it covers everything, not just the civil engineering, the roading, etc., but it covers everything. And what the aim is to draw out what everybody's vision for NZ could be. You know, with COVID-19, the concept of the Great Reset, there's 20 billion in the back pocket, and we can work out how we use that for best effect. So when I saw it come up, and I thought of Tech Week, most of you will remember Tech Week, and that's coming up as well. I thought same sort of thing, but the focus is the Great Reset, and I was absolutely gutted that there was not a specific element for tech in the government budget. 3.4 billion for shovel ready, 1.4 billion for training. I think technology slipped into somewhere that had 41 million to share amongst a whole range of stuff. But my thoughts were that with tech being third largest exporter, probably second now that tourism has gone quiet for obvious reasons, that you know, we could be training up a whole range of people to become coders. A whole range of people that have lost their jobs and are interested could become coders. There's a 16-week course. And then you've got all the types of roles that not necessarily industry specific, but your PMs, your BAs, your product managers, sales and marketing like myself, that could change from one industry if they have lost their job from tourism into tech, and therefore we could be exporting more globally. That's my brief vision. The idea is that we're going to have a range of speakers share tonight, and also audience, we're going to allow you to also share. So once we've had a lightning talk, we'll give you the opportunity to jump in and share. And we want to keep it quick and snappy, so no long, boring books like I am right now. So I'll call quits here. And I can see Sean smiling and giggling away. So therefore, as we don't have Paul, I'm going to invite our first speaker to be Sean Ordain, who is from Wellington City Council. And we have got to know each other a little bit over a few Quiet Yarns AFQY Cafe, but he can also speak to Vision Week because this is kind of his space. He also ran the emergency response for Wellington City Council throughout the lockdown. So without further ado, I'm going to pull up Sean and let's, oops, just having a little tech moment, unmute you and spotlight you. So Sean, if you'd like to take it away, sir.
Awesome. Hello, my name's Sean. I'm the head of innovation down at Wellington City Council, and it's quite painful to watch me try and use a computer. So here, we'll try this out, eh? So I'm going to have a talk to you about what I see as our vision. And I work for a city. I'm a city planner by trade, and I think cities are just amazing. They're made up of our hopes, our dreams, our ideas, our lives. They're the most complicated thing we make as people. And oddly enough, they make us profoundly human. I mean, urban areas are home to 87% of our people. And what happens there really matters. And one of the things that's most exciting in cities at the moment is digital twins. So down in Wellington, we have been building one for the last 7 or 8 years, and it's at the foundation of the way we do stuff. We have used it to help reverse the extinction of 5 species. We have used it to help us cut carbon emissions by, I believe it's 7%. We have effectively decoupled our GDP from our carbon footprint, which is an amazing achievement, and it's the first time we've managed to measure it. And it's all because of that digital consciousness. It's about understanding how we as an organization behave, how our city behaves, and how everybody within that environment both transacts and exists together. And the beautiful thing about investment in tech and digital twins is it lets you start to understand what that looks like. And if you think about who we built our city for, we built our city for the people who were in charge at the time. So there are bits of our city that were built for English colonists. There are bits that were built for 1950s mum, dad, and the 3 kids. But there aren't a lot of bits of it that were built for the people of today and the much more diverse population. And that's one of the exciting things about when you combine the digital and physical together. That's how things like the navigation systems around Lambton Quay work for the blind. It's taking an environment that, to be honest, can be profoundly unfriendly if you're hard of sight, and just quietly whispering reassurance in people's ear, helping them navigate, helping them stand up on their own 2 feet. And I suppose that's my vision for what New Zealand needs to be. It needs to be a place where we can stand on our own 2 feet, we can work together, and we can change stuff. And it's starting to get really exciting. So as we invest in things like the rules as code projects, the direct drafting of our legislation and rules that we make as a city into machine executable code bases, we're starting to be able to interact with that stuff. We can start to see whether a building will pass through the consent processes. We can start to understand how different acts of parliament and different processes combine with communities to get different results. And it's incredibly interesting. And and if you think about where we stand today, you know, we are that generation. We are the ones who are going to fuse these 2 worlds together and release all that energy that fusion creates. But to do that, we have to create, we have to understand, and most of all, we need to understand ourselves, because we're the ones who use the tools. That's me. And Ryan, back to you.
Yeah, no, thank you very much, Sean. Much appreciated. So we've also got Paul Blair to come in. We'll explain that in a second. That's probably more my fault than anything. But great to hear that, Sean. And for those of you that don't know, a digital twin is almost like SimCity. It is actually a digital representation of a real building. So if you think about the future of smart cities, smart buildings first of all, and then once all the buildings are smart buildings, then we can connect them to smart cities. And we'll have Stephen Clark from NZTA talk this evening as well, which is the joining together all those smart cities with, of course, the transportation, which will also be connected to, I guess, one smart country. So first of all, I just wanted to open it up to the floor. So if there's anyone that is in the world of digital twins and understands the relevance of digital twins and infrastructure in this version of infrastructure that would like to contribute, then by all means, just drop me a quick chat if you haven't already stuck your hand up visually. No, that's all right. We might have some more education to do on digital twins at some point. So what I'll do now is I will invite Paul Blair up. So my apologies to Paul. So I'm just going to quickly mute all and then get Paul unmuted. Hang on one sec, it's just coming.
There we go. Look at that.
There we go.
A non-tech guy unmuting. It's all good.
There we go. And I'm going to put you on spotlight now. So if everyone's on speaker view. So just to allow me to introduce you. This is Paul Blair, the CEO of Infrastructure NZ. It's an organisation. For you to explain a little detail about it. And they are running Vision Week, which I've explained very briefly. But you were to be our official opener of the event. I think I've sent you the invite about 3 times. We had a little technical hiccup, and I'll take full responsibility and hand over to you to give everyone the proper rundown of what Vision Week NZ is about and how everyone can contribute.
Hey, Ryan, and apologies, yes, technical snafus, but really pleased to have a chat to you all. So yeah, Paul Blair, Infrastructure New Zealand. Our vision is that all Kiwis should enjoy world-class infrastructure so they can lead better lives. And so the whole idea of Vision Week is not about infrastructure. It's not about roads or hospitals or anything like that. I'm an ex-banker who has joined this role because, I want to cleanse my sort of black banker soul and do some good for us now, but also future generations. So Vision Week is us joining together. It's the Sustainable Business Council. It's Internet New Zealand. It's a host of other fantastic people like the Ministry for Environment, the Construction Sector Accord, Infracom. And what we're trying to do is we're giving you a platform. So there's a digital TV program which is playing every day of this week. We've had 2 so far. They start at 10:30. If you just go to visionweek.co.nz, you'll see it there, or you can look it up on YouTube. And we've got some fantastic Kiwis that are talking about their vision for New Zealand. Really love you guys to put a 30-second clip of what you're passionate about, because this is the time when we can actually reset. So, really unfortunately, we had a physical event in Christchurch, an earthquake, and we spent $30 billion. And one of the things that unfortunately happened with that is that we didn't reimagine the 21st century city that we could have put in there. We sort of put back what we had. And I tell you what, if we've got $50 billion now and we've got the risk appetite and people are being a bit scared, I suppose, and are now thinking about being bold, then it's time to actually be bold and put a vision out there for New Zealand. So all during the week, we've had the Peter Becks and Rod Drury's and Nicole Rosie's and Rachel Torlele's and some other diverse thinkers. We've had some Nelson College students putting their vision up. And the whole idea is, what well-being do we want now and for our tamariki and our children as we go into the future? So, that's environmental, social, cultural, and it's holistic. So tech is really important. The Productivity Commission last week said there's 2 really, really big things that you should look at. If you want to be a successful small nation like New Zealand is, then you've got to specialise in a couple of things. And you've got to get from 30%, which is where we are, of exports as a percentage of GDP, up to 70%, 60 to 70%. That's what the Netherlands do, or Denmark, or Switzerland. 2 areas: agriculture, and probably regenerative, sustainable agriculture, and then tech. Tech on its own, tech as an enabler, weightless exports. So think about our opportunity is to triple our size of our green energy. We're already 82% renewable. So we could be exporting weightless services through digital and through tech. Great jobs, high incomes. I'm just old enough to remember when Europe had a butter mountain and we couldn't send any of our butter exports over there. So some bright spark said, I tell you what, I'll send croissants because they're 90% butter. And really that's the opportunity with digital, as we get really smart people here in New Zealand, creating jobs and sending that IP weightlessly, powered by green energy, to the world. So that's sort of part of my vision is better jobs, better lives, better well-being, all-round well-being, environmentally, socially, culturally, and economically for all New Zealanders. I'm not a tech guy, but I tell you what, I can see the potential, and I'd love to hear from you guys as to how we're going to do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's much appreciated, Paul. So what we'll do is I'll just take you from Spotlight, go to the whole view, unmute everybody. So for both Sean, my apologies, Sean, and for Paul, what we do is a round of applause, just like you would at a real life event, although people can't see it, you can hear it. So just 3 seconds. 1, 2, 3. Put your hands together for 3 speakers. Okay, we'll get better at that as we go. Now, to open it up to the floor, you've just heard from Paul, and you've also heard from Sean. If there's anyone that would like to add in their, dare I say, 2 cents, but that seems pretty apt for the relaxed atmosphere of AFQY, then by all means jump in. We've got the likes of No Pressure, we've got the likes of Alan Lightbourne here, who's now the CDO of Tauranga, but was the CIO of Mercury, so that's clean energy and cities, you're right in there. But anyone willing to stick up their hand?
Well, I'd probably just echo what was just said, right? I think we probably all agree that there's that great opportunity to use the clean green energy and a bunch of great digital IP to move us forward in the
Cool. All right. Well, what we're going to do, just so to give you an idea, the range of speakers that we have cover those 4 key areas that Paul mentioned. So let's go to Hiria Te Rangi, Kaiwhakahaere of... I'm getting some really bad feedback and sound, but Hiria Te Rangi, Kaiwhakahaere of Whare Hauora. So let's get you...
I'll mute.
Yes, I'll mute myself.
Hapai. Kia ora tātou, ngā mihi nui kia koutou katoa. I'm Hiria, and I'm the Kaiwhakahaere of Whare Hauora. So when we talk about trust, Whare Hauora is the way that we use technology in order to engender trust. And that's because Whare Hauora makes sensors. These sensors go into homes, they measure the temperature and humidity, we compare that to World Health recommendations or scientific research, and we tell you if your home is going to make you sick. Now we know that we have to base our product on trust because we're taking measurements every 10 minutes and we can tell some things about what's going on in our family's home just by looking at some of that data. And so when you look at the world today and you see what a dumpster fire it is, and we know that people are looking for stability, for consistency, and for someone to rely on. We created Whare Hauora as a Māori values-driven organisation. Our why is our how. And we did that specifically so that we could enable systemic change. So as you can imagine, in New Zealand, a lot of our homes are cold and damp, but no one actually knows what cold and damp means. The sensors measure temperature and humidity, and we know that if it's 16 degrees or under, that's cold. If it's 60% or over humidity relative, that's damp. It also means that we can tell you if mold is growing in your home, where it is, which room, how long it's possibly been growing for, and where to find it. When you have information like that, it means that you're going to create a family that's able to make cleaner, clearer decisions about how their family's health is affected by their home. So when it comes to the data, we have a really strong data governance privacy policy because Whare Hauora is the kaitiaki of the data. We are not the owner. It means that we are guardians. We will advise, support, maintain, we will record, but we do not own that data because the ownership resides with the family, as it should, because we feel that that data if we're taking a measurement every 10 minutes and we can tell if you went to the loo at 11 o'clock last night, that data is yours. The family also has tino rangatiratanga, the right to make informed decisions about their data. We can't just give it away willy-nilly if someone asks for it or gives us money. We must ask them if they would like to be a part of an aggregated data set. So we have a list of principles that we use. It means that if we do share data, the family must consent to it. And if we do share data, it must be aggregated, so no personal information. And it also means that we must bring balance by providing compensation or utu to the family for their use of their data. So if I'm talking about a data set that a health organisation wants in order to figure out respiratory health program budgets, and they need a data set that's, I don't know, 1,000 families across these areas, and they need it for winter, then we are able to provide that data, but we must ask first. And so when we get paid, I don't know, $10,000 for that, $5,000 must go back to the families that are a part of that data set, because that's what compensation and balance is. We also have one last principle, and that's te rārangatanga. That's when we interweave the family back into the community so that it supports the family to become stronger and healthier. We can't create partnerships with organisations unless it is to the betterment of the family. When I say betterment, I mean health organisations like Tūranga Health. Yodel. So it helps them to get help with, say, if they've just got a newborn baby. So the newborn baby respiratory program that is running currently, or the Kaumātua respiratory health program, or say if they're a health organisation that pays for top and bottom insulation. This way we're able to measure the home before the insulation is added in, measure the home after the insulation has been put in, and then tell them how much better their home performed, or maybe it didn't. That kind of information hasn't generally been available unless you're an absolute nerd. But, you know, nerds are cool. So from our point of view, when it comes to tech, it's very easy to be driven by profit, because that's what we're primed to do. And it's a really easy thing to do. The amount of money we were offered before we'd even built a sensor for those data sets is actually quite a lot. But we also know that if those families, our families, don't trust us to not share their data, to make sure that they are part of the consent process, that they know where their data is going, then why would they use us? And so when you compare us against America or China, who's not having a very good time at this point in time, and you look at what their tech scene is doing, trust is not there, not for the average family. If we can make trust a part of our value proposition, then we are way ahead. And it also means that our tech can be agnostic. So my biggest push for you would be, if you can, make your why your how. Nō reira, tēnā rā koutou, tēnā rā koutou, tēnā rā koutou katoa.
Thank you very much. So just to check, I'm off mute now. I put myself on mute, and I apologise, I didn't get to introduce Hiria properly because of the feedback, but I invited Hiria to speak, as she has done, about her values. So Hiria spoke at the digital inclusion event that I emceed in October last year, and I was just blown away by the values. Hiria actually has a really nice diamond, and delivers a whole lot more information around it in the full story. But what I thought, and you've heard this concept being talked about online, is that we need to step away from what we've always done because we've always done it the same way and we've got the same result. It's just crazy to carry on. And the values, as I've learned more and more about Māori etiquette and culture, and heard her explain these values, it just made so much sense that this is something we need to adopt, right? So if you think about Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook has been selling off the data and giving it to Cambridge Analytica, and everyone's all up in arms. Well, what do we do about it? We can moan and say it's not good enough and continue to use our Facebook, but we can also make change, and that is exactly what Hiria is doing. So for the people who are here who are from the Ministries of Health or the DHBs, also who are from construction companies that build buildings. So just to say Shane, Nisha, Alan, the concept is there. And in terms of trust, when Hiria spoke at the event, a representative, I won't name names, but a representative of Kāinga Ora, or what was Housing NZ, was there and had some great discussions. And then not long after that, released an RFP which included a CO2 measure. So Hiria had mentioned some of the realities of what the people in New Zealand are dealing with, which included that in a state home, if you have a state home for 4 people, but you have 9 people there, you put that through the census, you're likely to get taken out of it for regulation purposes. And it was very interesting, and I think it destroyed a lot of trust. That straight after that had been explained, Kāinga Ora brought out an RFP which included the CO2 measurement. So in short, my summary is, if we're actually going to be effective for the people, we need to do what's right for the people, not what's right by some bureaucratic rule from 200 years ago. So with that, let's give Hiria a quick round of applause, and then we'll open the floor up because there's been a lot of comments in here. So I want to hear what everyone else has to say, not what I have to say. Let's go unmute all. And thank you very much, Hiria. Much appreciated. So I think Emma Blackburn was the comment that I saw. So I'm going to invite Emma up onto here. Spotlight. Hey Emma, if you'd like to share your thoughts in regards to what Hiria shared, that'd be lovely.
So there were a couple of things here I thought it was brilliant. Firstly, I live in a damp house, and I understand that it's a damp house because of my background being English, but previous people who lived here didn't see that. And I really love the concept of being able to help families understand their health in relation to their homes and their living environment. So I think that's absolutely brilliant. The other point that I really liked, and I've written down, and I do some work for a DHB, so I'm going to go and engage with my DHB, is about the privacy management and the values that you bring. Again, I think that's really good. I've done some previous work in the privacy space for other areas, and I'm blown away by how you approach that. So I'm really impressed. So thank you very much, and I've learned a great deal in the space of 5 minutes.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for that, Emma. So what we'll do now is we will invite up John Eccles. So John is one of our sponsors who is part of the team that makes this happen. And I'm just, where we go, I think you were just under John without the last name. We got you there. Here we go. And unmute you. So I'll just quickly introduce John. Hang on, I'm pressing the unmute button. There we go. So John is the CEO of Magnetism, and his experience harks back to being a product manager at Fisher & Paykel, with quite a illustrious career spanning a range of things, including bringing I think it was an education company out of the red and into very good performance. So Magnetism is a CRM Microsoft-centric shop. But of course, got some great ideas that he's going to share. He's part of the message. So John, over to you to introduce yourself and share your vision and get everyone talking. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. So as Ryan said, I'm CEO of Magnetism Solutions. We've been in business since 2009. Before that, I've been product manager at Fisher & Paykel Healthcare. And got involved in a company specialising in clean air systems and clean rooms, and managed a private tertiary college. I firmly believe that the tech sector is an enabler of a stronger New Zealand economy. New Zealand organisations need to be innovators, leaders, and early adopters of tech. To provide a little bit of context for my talk, just want to consider a couple of the budget announcements. $10 million in funding to support small businesses to improve their e-commerce service offerings. $47.8 million to establish the next generation critical communications program, which is being led by Crown Infrastructure Partners. So imagine you're the owner of a small business searching for an e-commerce system. Or imagine you're a decision maker at Crown Infrastructure Partners and you're making decisions about how to spend $47.8 million. How do you find the right system? How do you find the right solution for your organization? So I want to offer an observation and just a couple of recommendations. The observation is that tech is changing really, really fast. The rapid pace of technological change is dizzying. In 1990, it took a working life to see one's skills become obsolete. But a study in 2015 said 50% of your current skills will become obsolete within 2 years. In my opinion, the half-life for technical knowledge in 2020 is more like 1 year, at least in the field that I'm operating in. So navigating the technology to find a solution for an organization is really hard. It's like trying to find a friend in a crowd, maybe a moving crowd in a heavy fog. It's just not easy. So my first recommendation is that you need to get good advice. You may need multiple advisors, maybe a virtual CIO if you haven't got your own CIO. You need to find advisors that A, know their stuff, and B, are focused on you and your success and not only on their product or their success. For smaller organizations, there's even free independent advice. Exporting. But there's some gotchas. Maslow, I think, said, if you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So if you find an advisor that really is expert in one thing, you have to be careful that the solution they provide for you takes a wider view. So you need someone who has a wider view of the different technologies available. You need advisors who are on your team. So you need advisors you can trust. You need specialists who are up to date because, as we just saw, the technology is changing really fast. Second recommendation, you need to think flexible or agile. I think we need to think ready, fire, aim. We shouldn't wait until we've got all the answers and have identified the perfect solution, because next week it won't be the perfect solution anymore. And chances are you don't even know all the right questions to ask yet. So it's best to get your feet in the water and try it out. When you do, you'll be a lot smarter and you'll have a much clearer idea of where the target actually is. And there's a gotcha. I think it's important that we think about the wider system and how the new tech might need to interact with the existing tech. I've seen many examples of organizations with multiple unconnected systems. And that may be better than no systems, but it's not scalable and fails really to achieve the real value. So that's my quick overview of, and hopefully I've helped some of you figure out how to navigate, how to get the right technology to enable your organization.
Thank you very much, John. Much appreciated. And you touched on trust. At one of the previous events, Nisha Clark, who's here from Downer, spoke about the relationships and trust that saw them through going to COVID-19. And what I was just thinking before let's give you a round of applause and then open it up to the floor for any feedback and commentary. So if we could give John, hang on, let me unmute everybody. I'm getting better at my technology. So everyone's now unmuted. So we'll give a round of applause to John. Thank you very much for your time.
Hey, John. Great job.
Thank you. Yes. So what I just wanted to ask was if anyone had any additional insights or thoughts they wanted to add to that, because yes, there's probably a lot of enterprise people in this group, but there will be some SMB people, and regardless of what size business or where you're at, you will have technology decisions that are a little bit, probably a little bit concerning, and you've got to make a call at some point. So does anyone want to jump in here with additional comment? No. Okay. So we're going to go to our next speaker, which is...
I want to jump in, actually. Sorry to be a late comer.
Not at all. Go for it.
Just wanted to say that your metaphor about finding a friend in the fog was very evocative, very helpful to me as a supplier to put myself in the shoes of customers and how they might be feeling about technology, which helps me to help them better. So thank you. Great metaphor analogy. That is all.
Thank you very much. So now I'm looking for Kay Marie, who is a little bit different because she doesn't have her name. She has Making Everything Achievable.
Yes.
I unmuted you just in time. So to introduce Kay Marie.
Oh, that was a real big close-up. Oh, jeez. I was like, whoa.
You're spotlighted now. So to introduce Kay Marie Dunn, I met Kay Marie at the All Government Showcase and learned very quickly. Oh, and actually, I first heard you speak at M2 Journey to Excellence, I think it was, with Andre Rao, and you were talking about blockchain and indigenous blockchain. And it's interesting, going back not quite 100 years, but I was MC for a series of blockchain events, and one of them happened to be in Wellington on the day after Waitangi Day. And Kay Marie is going to speak to getting more Māori people into tech. Currently 2.5% is the official stat. But the irony was, as mentioned in terms of blockchain, was that I learned at the age of 38 that there were two treaties, one that was signed and one that was understood, and there's a difference. And when I learned this, I was like, holy shit, no wonder we have the problem we do. If I was on the other side of the fence, I'm not on either side of the fence, but if I was on that side of the fence, I can see why there'd be a problem, right? So I thought with blockchain, and it has to be immutable, it's immutable, etc. Imagine if the Treaty of Waitangi was actually on the blockchain and all parties had to sign off on the transactions to ensure that it was legit, and therefore the illegit wouldn't be signed off, the legit could be. It caused a huge discussion, and this was going back into, think, about 2016, so sort of still reasonably early in blockchain, or maybe earlier than that. But with that, I will hand over to Kay Marie to make everything achievable.
Kia ora tātou. Tō tahi he mihi tēnei kia koutou kua taimai. Kia koe i te tuahine hiria. He pai te rongo kia koe pāna ki tō kaupapa whare ora. Kia koutou i tahi atu kai kōrero o te pō tēnā koutou. So kia ora, thank you for the welcome, everybody. I was just like, whoa, that's real close, and God, I should have done my hair, but that's okay. We'll just carry on. It's all good. I am Kay Marie. I hail from the north on my father's side in the Hokianga. I'm also from Waikato, from the Tairāwhiti, but I am nestled comfortably in Wainui-o-Mata after doing a bit of a stint in whangarei for some time. And the kaupapa that I'm going to talk to tonight in my 5 minutes is a bit about data. Some of the challenges or observations that I saw over COVID-19, and then where I see the potential of decentralised technology and what it may mean not only for Māori and Indigenous people, but actually the potential for this new economy as we're starting to reset into a new future. So I just wanted to debunk that stat that you shared, Ryan. It's actually not sitting at 2.6%. Currently, we got intel that that the number of Māori in the tech sector is currently at 1.6%, which is actually a step backwards. I will question those stats because it will probably be based on the last census, and we all know that not everybody, including Māori, participated in that last census. But if that is what it's looking like on paper, it's a travesty, and I said that's a travesty, big time. So what does that mean for us as communities in getting a deeper understanding of what this technology mean for us, mean for grassroots communities, and how can we utilise it to move ourselves from where we are today to where we're going to? I've been sitting within that gap and dancing in that gap and trying to figure out what's the fastest, easiest way that we can solve the problems, the wicked problems that we keep coming up and bumping into on a regular. So part and parcel of our mahi in the COVID-19 space was rapid response communication. So we looked after the comms between 11 iwi in Taitokero. And we also helped stand up a community-based assessment centre in partnership with Te Hauora o Ngāpuhi, and then also had to look at all the different challenges around data, from testing through to ensuring that our people were getting the right resources, to GIS mapping. And so technology isn't just this one piece, it actually sits across so many aspects of our lives. And therefore, if we don't even have access, and so if I come back to your statement about Te Tiriti there, Brother Ryan, you're quite right. If we don't actually have equal footing, equal access, if we don't have enough talent in this space that can actually build technology that responds to the needs of our communities, we're always going to be reliant on other people to have a heart for us. And whilst I say there are many of you that do, there are others that don't necessarily have our interests at heart, and that's concerning. So inside the space that we play in, there is a need, and it's very deep. There's also protection mechanisms. So what does that look like when it comes to protecting our information? And Hidia mentioned it earlier, the importance of ensuring that any data that is collected must belong to the individual and their whānau. And that also bumps in directly with other objectives from the Crown, for example, who are providing resource, but in exchange of resource, they want your information. And so what are the mechanisms that we put in place to work around families, especially our vulnerable whānau, that might not have the ability to speak out and say, I don't want to give you my information, but I'm also scared that if I don't give you my information, you're going to come up in my life anyway. And then on top of that, you might also misuse your position and actually cut me off from the resources that help keep me and my whānau alive. So those are really important considerations in technology that we bump into this space. So if I was to cut across the one piece that we are trying to make a difference, the first area is through our company, AHO. And AHO is a decentralized system that enables individuals to upload their genealogy. It's been 2 years in development. We're now in the space of enabling individuals to also create their own personal and whānau archive. And that's quite critical from the COVID-19 space, because we didn't know what the enemy was, and we thought that we could be at risk of losing a lot of our whānau. So at that same time, you're also concerned about your own genealogy, your own whānau stories. And so where would that go, and where would people put that? And if you put it somewhere, who owns it? Where does it belong? It's yours, but again, you don't have ownership of it the moment that you upload it somewhere. So one of the cool things about our product, which I'm really proud of, is our team have been working literally around the clock to create our own data protection mechanisms to ensure that that data is firmly with the individual and their own family. And so once we start to roll that out, so over the next 3 months, we'll be working with tribal partners in the north, in Tauranga, and also other whānau from the Waikato. We'll be having a whole stack of whānau uploading their information into their own decentralised databases. And then it will lead to, my last 2 points, it will lead to opportunities in digital identity, and my hope, the potential of digital banking. So, kia ora everyone, that's my 5 minutes up. I could talk for much longer, but I'm looking forward to any questions that might pop up as well.
Thank you so much. And let's start with a round of applause, and then we'll get to those questions, because there's a lot of chatter happening through the background there. So hang on, I've got to unmute everybody. Unmute you all. You are unmuted. So a round of applause for Kay Marie Dunn, making everything achievable. Yay! Woo! And just a little cap up before we open it up to the floor is that, you know, obviously with what's happening globally, it's happening everywhere in the world, and also here in New Zealand. So, you know, I'll just be Ryan, as a white guy, it can be sometimes awkward to talk about, but we have to talk about it. My wife happens to be Māori, and the number of times I have faced the racial or racism has actually got me into some very heated discussions, in fact arguments, and luckily I always win because I've got the loudest voice. That's why I'm called Ryan the Lion. But it's not just to focus on things that are happening like the riots, etc., but to focus on the positive. Is that we need to open our minds from how we were programmed. I grew up in Dunedin, and I grew up socially racist. Didn't know had a mixture, but there was certainly a lot of social racism. That's what's called a casual racism. Let's just call it racism, and it exists. So my thing is that everyone who comes to AFQY, there's a set of behaviours that you're expected to adhere to, and it's not just at AFQY. It's not about being good at church on a Sunday. It's about being good all the time, because that's just how we are. So, you know, I would really love to see a lot more diversity in tech, and especially a lot of the values that come from tikanga. Is that, have I got the right word if I use tikanga in terms of Māori values? We can learn a lot from it. So explore our Māori culture and find out more about it, and let's see more of it coming through in tech and making everybody feel welcome. So let's open it up to the floor. Do we have any questions or any input? I think Nori Ape will have something to say. Got a very...
Sorry.
You're right.
I totally agree with Kay Marie. Like, if Māori is only 1.6, Pacifica are probably under that. So one of the things like Hidi and I, because we gas bag as much as we can, one of the things I'm super keen on is Wellington in particular, and I've worked in government and in private, where it's such a lack of cognitive diversity. And when you only have the same people designing the same software, you end up with the same outcomes. So it doesn't, like, I've worked in government and it's the same thing. It doesn't matter whether it's policy or technology, that lack of depth in terms of like just cultural intelligence, as well as other things that we take for granted. That's such a big difference in the quality of the product that you put out. And so I completely agree. I'm so happy that Kay Marie gave her talk. It's sparked a lot of interest in me in terms of what we do with the Pacifica data as well, because it's the same concept. We consistently get interviewed for questions of what do you think, what do you think, what do you think, and then we never see the data again. But it's used to build like tons of things that are beneficial, but it's never the data that we own to retain and build out technology for Pacifica people. Yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you very much for sharing, Nori. And yes, it's again, from my perspective, everything in my world fits me. So I have not walked in the shoes that you're talking, you know, the perspective you're talking from, to live in a world that does not work or fit for me. And I think this is where the whole discussion of white bias and privilege comes into it. And I think a lot of people like myself originally struggled with understanding that, because there's an initial, I've never said a bad word, I've never done it, I'm not like that, but it's the awareness of that next level of systematic and colonisation is probably one of the words that's been coming out a lot now, and people are starting to get educated about it. So, one of the things, if I go back to a completely different subject, Me Too. Me Too taught the world that we can change the things that are status quo but shouldn't be. And Black Lives Matter, which is currently happening, is the next one. And I hope to see everything that isn't right put right over the next few years as the world tackles everything. So let's move on to our next speaker, and it's probably quite fitting that we move to digital culture. So I'm going to bring up Hillary. So let's go spotlight Hillary, and then I will need to unmute you. I've got things going the wrong way. I'm going to unmute first.
I think I've already done it.
You have. I'm going to mute all, and then unmute you again. So let me introduce you. This is Hillary Walton. So sitting in front of her, we'll just call it her CISO role, which is at Cordia, but also works heavily in the digital culture space. And while you might think a CISO is going to be a hardcore security tech geek, she is, but she came from a background of psychology. And you might have heard in our recent interview how she moved from psychology through to tech by running the security for the 2012 Olympics. And the mix between the two of technology and psychology has meant she has worked a lot in the culture space, and especially digital culture, which she's going to share with you this evening. So Hillary, over to you.
Thank you, Ryan. Hi, everyone. How are you? Not necessarily expecting a response there, but thank you so much for having me here today. My vision is to build a digital culture so that we can build a digital nation, and that's going to be the theme of what I want to talk about. I became really fascinated in digital culture because I started leading digital transformation projects, kind of went from psychologist to security to IT, as you do, and then back to security. But it blew my mind how some people would just jump on board and start adopting technology, and other people, you just couldn't get them to pick it up. They'd almost like refuse to move. And, as a psychologist, as well as a CISO and a digital transformation person, really piqued my curiosity. I was like, what is it about people that kind of leads them to be interested in tech versus others who just aren't? Because when you're interested in tech, there's a thing there where you have to start changing your behavior, and you need to be open to learning new skills. And then there's some people who just weren't open to that. And I was like, oh, what is it? I'm reading the digital transformation stuff. Is it because of the story we're telling? Is that not right? Is the why not compelling enough? Is it they really don't know where we're heading, like where the transformation is actually going? And the answer is yes, it is tied up in the communication and the participation and the roadmaps and things like that that you can build for people. But it's actually, I think, a whole lot more than that. So I find digital culture comes really thick and fast when you have those really adaptable people. They're quite change ready. They're not afraid to learn new things. And then I heard about this thing called the adaptability quotient from one of Ryan's really recent LinkedIn live sessions with Lisa Mead. And I was like, aha. So adaptability quotient is this metric of adaptability, and they use it to measure performance in the workplace and assess individual potential. So it's one of those things that's a little bit like EQ. That's another one of those quotient-y type things. And that's about recognizing emotions in yourself and other people, being able to name them, and then kind of guide people in their behavior towards goals. But really simply, AQ, so adaptability quotient, it's often referred to as something called growth mindset. And there's a researcher called Carol Dweck, if I'm saying her last name right, who really popularized this, and she does a lot of talks on it. You can go to YouTube and there's like TED Talks and things like that. And she's done a lot of research in this space. And she talks about it as actually being a perception. So if you have a fixed perception, so a fixed mindset, then you're scared to learn and you think when things won't improve. But when you have a growth mindset, you learn more, you're more resilient. In the face of setbacks, you step out of your comfort zone. And she had this really interesting part of her research where they actually looked at growth mindset with different financial status type of people, and found that at any level of financial status, or socioeconomic status, students with a growth mindset perform better. And so I've been thinking about that. I've been thinking about digital culture, and in light of where we are in terms of the pandemic and the recession, sadly, there's going to be a few people losing their jobs if they haven't already. And tech is one of the most fastest growing industries. We've heard people talk about that today. Year on year, there's more jobs in tech. So I'm just wondering whether there's an opportunity here for some of those people who might be losing their roles to re-educate themselves in tech. And I'm not just talking about coding. Coding is important. That's how all the apps are made. And it's, really important that people kind of can learn that skill. And I try and teach my kids that through some of the, hour of code stuff. But there's so many more different jobs in tech. It's, sales, IT, business analysts, management. So how can we kind of re-educate people into tech? To do this is where adaptability comes in. We have to get them over the hoop of thinking that tech is just for techie people. That if you didn't have an IT background, then you're on the outside. It's going to be really hard to break in, and may not work, because it's simply not true. And the more and more people that I talk to in my own experiences, that's absolutely not true. So my vision or idea is, how do we train people in tech, but maybe also accompany that with training people in this growth mindset as well, so that they will pick up learning more readily and, know that they can learn this subject, which they perceive as hard, and therefore be more successful. And, technology is, you might think it's going to be everywhere. It's going to be part of every role, every career, every industry. And as people have kind of been saying in the comments, actually, that's not true for some of our 5 million teammates in New Zealand. So when we went into lockdown, can you imagine not having the internet? Like not having a computer, not having access? Like I know my family pretty much lived on the internet. And in fact, we probably can't function that well without it in our day-to-day life. But digital technology and the internet aren't actually available for everyone. Yet, it helps us transact and interact and learn and grow faster and faster and faster, but it's not a reality for everyone in New Zealand. So, that's not just because people don't have access to the internet. It can be because they can't afford the internet. It can be they don't have the capability and skills to use it, or they have some impairment that means they can't interact with the technology, or even the kind of capability or trust was also something mentioned today as well. But those in the digital divide, if they don't have that, then they can't access websites, they can't look for jobs, they can't do online homework, they can't transact through banking, they can't get medical results. It really does compound this inequality that we have. And also those people with those risks and concerns around the internet, seeing it as a scary thing, they don't trust it. I mean, majority of New Zealanders do think that it's generally okay, but there are a lot out there who don't trust it, and then also a lot that just don't put basic cybersecurity things into practice to make sure it is safe. If you really, I don't know, if we did a poll in this room, we're not going to do it, but how many of you are actually using multi-factor authentication for all your personal stuff as well as work stuff? And how many are actually using password managers and things like that? I'm pretty sure it wouldn't be everyone in the room. And so we're not doing some of that really basic stuff. So another idea to help these people train in tech and also the growth mindset is, I've been recently exposed to some work by Chris Hales, and he has been doing some cyber kind of security, actually it's cyber psychology, which I love, research around a security quotient. And the idea is that if you can scan human beings for vulnerabilities, doesn't sound very good when you say it like that, but then you can also make them a human firewall through education and things like that as well. So how can we combine those three things, training people in tech, the growth mindset, and a kind of security firewall kind of status to really push things along. Now, I often talk about diversity and inclusion, but it is more on the gender side of things. And there's this phrase that I heard there, which I really love, and I want to share here. And it says that, you know, some women jam their foot in the door and they try and drag as many other women through as possible. Other women let the door close. I wonder, on the digital culture side of this, you know, we need a digital culture throughout New Zealand where people jam the door open for people in the digital divide and drag them through as many as possible, and don't just let the door close. And if you think about that in your everyday life, you know, how often have you learned something great, a really good internet tip, technology tip, super useful, and you kept it to yourself? Or you shared it with someone and then they were like, oh, I've been doing that for 4 years. And you're like, why on earth didn't you tell me? That would have been super helpful. So, you know, we need to we need to take every useful thing, every great idea. We need to pass it on and pass it on. And just because you think someone's not techie doesn't mean you shouldn't try and teach them. So it's a bit like, you know, we need to pass on digital culture like a really positive virus, a really good virus, and not just wash our hands of it. So that's me. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you very much, Hilary. That is spot on. You know, with the different speakers that we have tonight, there'll be things that'll overlap a little bit and mesh together. And this is a really important subject. So, as I mentioned before, Hilary actually spoke at the digital inclusion event last year. And, you know, whether it be someone like my father, who tried to change the TV with a calculator once upon a time. My mum's a CIO, so it was quite hilarious watching her swap the calculator and the TV over. He now is connected across Facebook with every rugby club and rugby person in the world and spends his retirement talking rugby and loves it. You know, he would be a Luddite. So if we think of the different people out there that have got different experiences or different knowledge, different capabilities, you know, he couldn't even turn a computer on, and then he ends up using Facebook like crazy, and he's now an expert, 70 something. So if we could manage to work out how to jam the door open and pull everybody forward, whether they're 70 years old and technology afraid or don't have access, we can provide them access, all of those things. So let's mute everybody and do a round of applause for Hilary, and then we'll open up to the floor. So 3, 2, 1. Thank you, Hilary. Yo. So, anyone from the floor who'd like to add into this picture in terms of New Zealand's Great Reset? Ralph Shale, yes, very vocal. We've been chatting on LinkedIn for years, and now we are face to face in some regards. You're still on mute though. There we go.
I think that's sorted it.
There we go. Far away.
Look, and Ryan, I'm going to pick you up because what I've listened to, and my background's not tech. My background's in commercialising a range of, or helping a range of businesses commercialise. I think we need to start to take a step back and say, what is tech? Because when we talk about tech being the third largest exporter, a lot of that is Fisher & Paykel appliances, healthcare. That's hardware stuff. That's not development. And I think it's really important that we start to, you know, go down levels to say, what are we actually capable of doing? Where is our expertise? So software development is part of what tech is, but it's actually a large, a lot of it's not tech. And I've done some stuff in the dairy industry, and I tell you what, infant formula is technology. There's a hell of a lot of tech that goes into building an infant formula process. So I think we're at a level where we should be starting to say, when we talk about tech, let's be specific about where that tech actually applies.
Yep.
Just my thoughts.
No, I think that's a really powerful point, Ralph. I think working in the tech industry, I have got a little bit myopic, a little bit one-eyed. I'm from Dunedin, I'm not a Cantabrian, but I can get a little bit one-eyed on tech. So it's a really important point. Yeah, infant formula, Fonterra or New Zealand provides 20% of the milk products to the world. Agri-tech, so it could be something that's, I remember looking at a whole range of submissions for drones that would keep frost off grapes, drones that would deliver nutrients and whatnot to different plants, and they would study it using AI to distinguish whether it needed it or not. So yeah, tech is a lot wider, and that probably talks back to the point around, just trying to think who made it, around, I think it was Hillary just made it, around tech is not just for techie people, or we box it. And people think I'm not a techie person. I'm not that nerdy guy like Ryan, who talks about development all the time. So tech's not for me. So your concept of opening this up beyond one little piece and being specific about what we're talking about, so we don't get stuck on one little part of it when it's so much wider and so much great opportunity. I think that's a really important point. So thank you very much. So what we're going to do now, just before we come back to Chandan, Ohri, is we're going to go into a breakout room to give you all a chance to have a bit of a chin wag, a bit of a yarn, and come back fired up for the next few sessions. In terms of commercialisation, Ralph, we've got Aidan Keneally who's speaking a little bit later on around funding. So whether it be an agri-tech or a drone or infant formula or developing that, the next zero, then Aidan will speak to the funding and we'll get into the commercialisation discussion. But first of all, let's give you a bit of a time to stretch the tongue, and we'll go into a breakout room and come back for Chandan and Ohri. So we've got 62, 38. There we go. We'll see you soon. Please enjoy having a chat for 5 minutes. We'll be back into the main room very shortly. Remember, we are talking about what we can do with the tech opportunity, the budget, and we're starting to get some ideas as a catalyst to what we could be talking about, thinking about, and doing. So please get stuck into it and have a good yarn with everybody that you get to talk to. Everyone's just slowly disappearing off into their rooms, and we might have a few people left here. No worries, Yagi. Thank you very much for dropping me the note. See you later. Andy Higgs, Michael Freeberg, Nick Ray, Seth Bateman, Dale Pearce. That's probably not a bad room to be in. And you're all disappearing off to your rooms, which is good. Unmute all. So, Michael, are you there? Seth, are you there? Dale, are you there? Oops. Gemma, you're there.
Yeah, Zoom just crashed and kicked me out of my breakout room.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it just looks like I didn't want to talk to Anthony Dyer.
That's all right. Yeah, Anthony knows you from, I don't know, how many AFQYs. How you doing?
Good.
That's good. Yeah, everyone, I think everyone else has stepped away from for a second. So we've got a few spare spaces on screen. But how's it down in Hamilton?
Cold.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really cold.
They talked about negative 15 degrees in the Southern Alps or something tonight.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Yeah, no, it's meant to be kind of cold the next couple of days, I think, but that's all right.
Yeah. Hey, look, I'm just going to duck off for a second, so I'll leave you in charge, okay?
Okay.
And you are now co-host. So if you need to mute or unmute or do anything, you should have all the abilities. Was there no one else there?
In the breakout room I was in.
No, in here.
And here, no, just some muted and no video people.
Here's Dale. Dale's back.
Yeah, my computer just died.
Oh, no way.
I need a new, it's about a 7-year-old Mac, and it's just started doing this. It just goes.
Ah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have one of those, and I have it sitting beside me, and every now and then it will, when I'm working on it, the fan just kicks in, and it sounds like a plane taking off. I'm surprised no one's heard it when I've had it going before, but yeah.
I know, I'm so reluctant to, to buy a new one, but things like that worry me.
Do it. Exciting new technology. It's always, I always have a bit of apprehension about buying a new device because there's always so much new stuff. You're like, oh crap, I've got to spend all this time getting used to the new stuff, which funnily enough is what we're talking about, digital cultures. So it must be about time that I probably run back out of breakout room. Has it been long enough? Long enough but not too long? Was I meant to be keeping time?
I think we went in at 6:24, so.
Oh, it's okay. So we're not too. So no, leave everyone in there because it gives them a good chance to stretch their tongue, as I say, and we'll keep on trucking after that. So, what's it like? What does it seem? It almost seems like I was just thinking when I went away. I was like, man, I can't wait to get back to in person. It almost be like haven't had an in-person event for that long that it I'm actually kind of itching to have one now. Andy, you're back. Just unmute you. Unmute everyone. Oh, there's Gagan.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
How are you, mate?
Good.
I've actually got another call with South Africa now, so I'm just going to say thank you and yeah, thanks for bringing everyone together. Hopefully next time it'll be face-to-face.
Absolutely. That's what I'm planning. It's the third week of the next month. So we're in the second week of this month. So it's going to be 6 weeks, in which we plenty of time to get organised. And for everyone to be feeling pretty safe and happy that it's real. We are safe.
Okay, and hey, if you want, you could do a live shout out for us. We've got a similar Q&A on Friday morning at 9:30 a.m. and as part of the Vision Week.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Keyboard Ready Projects. That's what it's all about.
Yeah. Paul Blair chatted that in there. That's right. So yeah.
That's the new term. It's not. You've heard of Shovel Ready. This is Keyboard Ready.
Yes.
That's where the work's going to come from.
All right, mate. Well, you have fun with South Africa, and we'll be watching you on Friday at 9:30, I think it is.
Yeah, good man.
Cheers, mate. Okay. See you later. So, Nisha, are you going to say hello, or are you going to keep disappearing behind?
Sorry, fell off. Technology, I tell you.
We were just talking about that. Dale's Mac has just died, 7 years old. How you doing?
Great, 24% we've got left.
Ooh. Yes. Well, I'll say it, but I'll remind you we're on camera, so you might not want to answer. But the Kiwi Rail really go and spend $340 million with an offshore company instead of doing it onshore?
I heard that rumour.
Yeah. I just find it unbelievable. I thought they'd have some sort of government policy in place that they can't.
Oh,
Like,
that's been the conversation, is that in the current climate, how could we let something so big go offshore?
I just think it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. Like as a what am I? A ratepayer?
Contributor.
Not a student, a constituent. What's the word? A citizen. As a citizen of New Zealand, I'm disgusted that that has happened.
It'd be good to understand the detail behind it.
Yes. Yes. Well. Yes. It'd be good to know what is legally safe to say, because could easily say the wrong thing. But we won't go there. But I think everyone's probably thinking the same thing.
To get the detail.
Hey?
We're all interested to get the detail.
Yeah, well, under the Public Information Act, aren't we allowed to ask?
I think so.
Yeah.
I'll take a snapshot and ask the Jacinda thing, shall I?
Yeah. Let's
Right.
do that. Well, what I'll do is I'll bring everyone back out of breakout rooms now, and we'll go into our next speaker. So bear with us, and I will close the rooms, and we'll let everyone come back in. I can hear someone's phone ringing. It's always quite good fun watching this happen as they come back in. Alex McNaughton, Seth Bateman, Steve Cregan.
Hey, Ryan.
Hey, welcome back everybody to the main room. So just can take up to 60 seconds for people to reappear, and we'll just give everyone the chance, because they'll still be in their discussions going, no, we don't want to hear Ryan anymore. We want to keep talking. But as people come back out, how is everyone doing, and thinking in regards to our future with the potential of the government budget being spent on some tech? All right, so just bringing everyone back in from the breakout rooms, and we'll get ready for our next speaker. Hope you all had a good chinwag, a good yarn. We're able to share some of your thoughts and thinking, and hope you're feeling a bit more inspired and fueled up, ready to share some of your own ideas. So we will just let everyone get back in there. So it's coming through, 1 of 4 pages. Nick Farrow, good to see you.
Hey man, how you doing?
Yeah, very good.
Excellent.
That's good. Kenny Kay, the Hulk. Yes. Stephen Clark, we're speaking shortly. Jonathan Foote. Oh, I haven't told the Javelin story yet. That's always a good story to roll out. Hassan. Okay.
How are you?
Very good. So just while we're waiting for the last few people to come in, when I was at school at Otago Boys, a teacher used to tell the story about this one sports day. So when I've been coaching rugby up here in Auckland to school kids, I talk to them about, and I use this story about the top 2 inches, and maybe it's a little bit of inspiration for everyone here. So I talk about rugby being all to do with technique in the top 2 inches. It doesn't matter how fast, slow, big, small you are, but it's technique in the top 2 inches, as in self-belief. So the story very quickly is that at the sports day, every school is a sports day, and Otago Boys had 2 7th formers who were equally the national champion javelin throwers for school. And they were both arguing and fighting over who was going to throw first, because they both wanted to throw second to beat the other. And anyway, this 4th former, who was a strapping young lad, strolls up, grabs a javelin, says, I'll give it a go while you guys are sorting this out. And through, as the story goes, the longest javelin throw for the category in New Zealand, breaking both of those 2 champions' personal best and the New Zealand record. Strolls back past them and goes, yeah, guys, all right, your turn. And they threw their worst throws ever, both of them completely thrown off. Running through their head was probably thinking, how did this little 4th former, or stale turd, as all us old people would know that reference, just throw a javelin further than us? We are the 2 champions at this level. And I told it quite quickly, and probably not quite so eloquently, but when I'm telling the 3rd and 4th formers, I really wind them up and get them going about the fact that, you know, the top 2 inches is where it matters in terms of digital culture from Hillary, and some of the different aspects we're talking about, commercialisation, having a bit of self-belief and challenge ourselves. Actually, perfect segue into our next speaker, Chandan Ohri, who is a sponsor as well and spoken at each of the events, and talked about having an entrepreneur's mindset, to think like an entrepreneur. So I'll bring up Chandan now. Let's start with unmuting and going to Spotlight. So yeah, that mindset. So got Chandan batting in, I think, is it number 5 in cricket? That is typically the one that's hitting the sixes. So with that, we'll hand over to you, Chandan, to share with everybody around what we could do for the benefit of New Zealand with tech.
Excellent. Thanks, Ryan, and good evening, everyone. My name is Chandan. I work for DUCO Consultancy. One of the topics I wanted to talk about, how do we operationalize tech ideas and help from a New Zealand perspective. What I'll share with you is how we do it in an organization or in DUCO, and then how can we expand it across multiple organizations, obviously giving it your own flavor, and making sure that the organizations benefit, the community benefits, and then adds to the prosperity of New Zealand. So one of the things we do is identifying opportunities for improvement with 2 high-level principles. So we encourage, or anyone should encourage, an open innovation model, which is basically purposeful inflow and outflow of knowledge to accelerate innovation internally, while also expanding the markets for the external use of innovation. And also to encourage investment in outcomes, not product. So we have a technology fund, or organizations should have a technology fund that is established at the beginning of the year to encourage entrepreneurs within our organization. So anyone can pitch for the idea and have the ability to be part of the solution group rather than a product group. So provide ownership of the initiative or idea, and there needs to be a sense of enablement. So the next thing I wanted to touch upon was also around smaller wins. So it is important to ensure that we measure and celebrate smaller wins through, we can call them as KPIs or milestones, but it is important that as we are operationalizing these ideas, that we celebrate and encourage our fellow colleagues in their or organizations. Engagement as part of change management to ensure we get the team behind it and in the work, and it's not just about the C-suite. So very often we try and see as if, you know, we've got the buy-in from the C-suite or key people, but it's about how do you take it to a wider set of groups. The next ideas is to prioritize experimentation and also monitor. So the milestones or KPIs or that we spoke about, it should become the lens for the organization to view new opportunities, risks, decisions, etc. So how do we do that? How do we enable it? Is absolutely essential for success. And then lastly, I talk about continuous improvement. So basically, you just cannot say this is what we started with and this is what we're going to end with. You need to encourage feedback under the continuous improvement model and maintain that entrepreneurial spirit. So take the ideas, apply innovation models, look at solutions, not products, celebrate smaller wins, engagement, and obviously prioritize experimentation under the continuous improvement model. So these are the mantras that we work with in DUCO, but I've also encouraged other organizations to look at that and work. That's me for the evening. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you very much. And I'm just trying to remember the name, but I think there's the word royal is in the name. But Murphy's Law, go completely quiet now. But yes, the operationalization of a project is obviously really important. We're talking about commercialisation earlier, and we'll have Aidan talk about funding in a moment. And you know, I really believe that there's a huge opportunity for New Zealand to become quite a production hub, like you've talked about before, where some of your American clients are really keen to work with the New Zealand teams, and choosing them wasn't necessarily the cheapest available globally, and that wasn't such a thing. But the real buzz around New Zealand that has been created by our COVID-19 and a few other activities or actions that Jacinda has delivered, that has helped put New Zealand on the map. And now we just need everyone to realise how amazing we are at tech. So with that, what I'll do is I'll unmute everyone for a round of applause to say thank you to Chandan. Chandan is also one of our sponsors. He's supporting AFQY and myself annually, and been a great personal rock in behind while I've been going through some, we'll say, family surgery. So thank you very much, and let's give him a round of applause. Let's go. Thank you very much. So is there any commentary from the floor that we want to look at in terms of operationalisation? Because you have a great idea. We're going to talk about funding in a minute. That's obviously a big part of it. But if we can get funding, you've got to have some sort of something. So in terms of getting it going, would anyone like to add to this picture? No, the bird and the kid have given us more than enough. Or is that you?
Right, Ryan, and look, great talk, and another fantastic talk. They've all been really good tonight. I'm not sure if this comes under the category of specific operationalisation, but that point there around what are the USPs for New Zealand, and sharing and understanding collectively as a country where we have those unique selling points would be great. And I sort of think if we hark back to the kind of opening lines around the infrastructure for New Zealand, I've kind of interpreted infrastructure in a fairly liberal way. You know, we've heard tonight about infrastructure for development, infrastructure for, you know, for data, for the regulatory environment, the trust. There's all these kind of foundational, reusable things that can lead to lifting the collective game for New Zealand. And so I just wanted to kind of put that call out there for everybody to really kind of consider what are those things that can be reusable across New Zealand, you know, even if it's just shared knowledge around what is it that's fantastic about us in the eyes of our clients, because we know that that's the gold mine, is understanding what is of value to our customers overseas. So if we're going to raise exports, it's knowing what value looks like in the eyes of our customers overseas. So
yep.
So yeah, just wanted to offer that. So great talk.
That's really important, and I happen to know that you work for probably the largest global bank. So you'll be exposed to a whole range of different discussions and ideas. And just sort of on that note, I remember someone saying to me, no offense to anybody or anybody in this picture, but they said, you know, would you buy something from? Would you buy a cell phone made in an island in the South Pacific? So probably not. I mean, that's how America and Europe see New Zealand, and this is going back a number of years. So in terms of what, so two things is in terms of what New Zealand is on the map for at the moment, it's not for tech, but as you talk about it, if we work to what international global clients are looking for in terms of value, then we can really put ourselves on the map. So thank you very much for that. Let's now go to our next speaker, and let's call up Anthony McMahon. So let me type the name first. There we go. So unmute and bring Anthony up. Just a spotlight. So Anthony is a great rugby fanatic like myself. We've had a few discussions, and I think, you know, you're on mute. So he happens to be a Hurricanes supporter and fan, while I'm a Highlanders, and we had a bit of a joint conversation over Kupu Vanesi, who was originally a Highlander and then a Hurricane. But the background from a service perspective of IT, moving into EA, and then starting his own business, IT Psychiatrist. Anthony is one of our sponsors, and also going to share tonight around the enablement of tech. So thank you very much for stepping forward and supporting AFQY and helping everybody come together. Really appreciate that, and look forward to how we can enable with tech. Over to you.
Thanks, Ryan. And yeah, look, we've had some great chats about rugby in the past. I wasn't going to launch straight in with that, but I've already got my tickets to Eden Park this weekend. Might be a Hurricanes fan, but I'm living in Auckland now. So taking my 5-year-old son, who is a Blues fan, and we're going to see who has bragging rights for the next few weeks. As Ryan said, I've got a background as an enterprise architect. Now, I'm not going to get into detail on what that means. If you haven't come across the role, I could spend another 5 hours explaining it and would still both be lost. But ultimately, the focus I have is working with companies, working with small and medium businesses to help them identify the problems they have and then how they might be able to solve it. Used to work with Paul Blair back in the day at BNZ. We were on slightly different sides of the dark side. He was business, I was technology, and we'd like to blame each other when things weren't working. So good to see you again, Paul. And one of the good things about being so far down the speaker list is you're able to adapt your message as everyone else has talked as well. So a couple of things I just want to touch on from previous speakers. Sean, right at the start there, talked about a digital twin and the value of that. And it's something I'm exploring and bringing into my model that I work with my customers on as well. And the best way to describe it is as a test environment or a development test environment for your business. You know, you're able to fail, you're able to try things and see how they go. Without actually impacting on the business. You know, we've been using twins for a long time. Apollo 13 was a great example where the engineers on the ground actually were able to model and map out different things that the astronauts could try and then relay it to them. And then if you think of car manufacturing, where they build the twin model of a car and start to carve off different things in the wind tunnel. So it's a concept we've been playing with for a long time. The other one, and this kind of comes from Ralph and Hilary as well, I think one of the biggest challenges the technology industry has is we're full of jargon. And the anecdote I was reminded of, and I dropped it in the comments, was a technology consultant, not me, fortunately, heading down to a rural community to talk to them about AI and spent quite a big part of his conversation talking about AI, and then got held up by one of the farmers down there asking him why he spent all this time talking about this weird thing that had nothing to do with artificial insemination. So the thing we've got to remember in the tech industry particularly is that our audience may have a different understanding of the terminology that we're talking about. So we need to get that right. Something else that I've been reflecting on lately is the difference now from the 1918 flu. And technology's played a big part of that. You know, if you think back to 1918, the channels that people were informed through were the radio and the newspaper, so print media and radio. If they didn't get those, they may not have ever got updated on what was going on. And if you fast forward to this pandemic, the biggest difference we've had is everyone who has a cell phone, there's probably about 5 people in the country who may not have got it, my brother probably one of them, but everyone on the 25th of March got an alert between 6 and 7 o'clock on their cell phone, letting them know what was happening, and it was consistent and clear. We've got to this point where our leadership can provide a message to us that's consistent, that can provide it in a way that's clear and easily understood. So we're removing that jargon because we're talking to a broader audience as a result. Other speakers have talked about this as well. Technology is in a constant state of flux. There's always a next big thing, and the company that's actually going to be the most successful is the one that's going to adapt the best. And I see technology in two veins. There's the consumer and the creator. So not everyone is a creator. Those are the people that are out there building new tools, new toys, new things, new whatever. That's some of those export markets that we talked about before. But then there's the consumer, the people that we're selling to. And one of the things that we've got to be aware of as we're building out our new products, whether we use technology or not to do it, is that if our market aren't there, if the consumer's not there, the products we build aren't going to be successful. So what that leads me to is in terms of technology enabling your business, whatever it might be, is actually start with the problem that you want to solve. Start by identifying why. Because if you haven't got the why in mind, you're not actually going to know that you've got to where you need to get to. You're not going to know that you have the tools around you to develop, or the skills around you. And skills is a big one. You know, if you know what problem you're solving, you can do two things with it. You can either identify the skills you have and whether they're relevant for what you need, or you can identify the skills that you do need, and you can bring the two together and start to bring your people on the journey. You know, there's the talk about the online courses and training people. But one of the things we can do is say, look, we've got someone in here who doesn't have the skills we need, but they're ready to learn. Let's put them on a course and train them up into how to develop, or how to code, or how to manage a system and an environment, so that you've actually got that around you. I think people are a huge part of the success of technology in a business. One other thing that needs to be addressed in there as well, and it harkens back to one of the myths about Blockbuster, is you need to address your business model just as much as what your technology is doing. Netflix was a big part in why Blockbuster was a failure, but one of the bigger reasons as well was that Blockbuster's business model relied on late fees. And I think they generated about 16 or 17% of the revenue of Blockbuster. So as soon as they stopped charging late fees, they took a massive revenue hit that they couldn't quite catch up on. One thing that actually was possible very, very early on in about 2000 was Blockbuster could have bought Netflix. So Blockbuster could have become what Netflix was. But Blockbuster couldn't see past their business model as to how much they were making money from late fees. And as soon as they stopped them, it became a problem. And so that's something else that's in there, is that you have to be prepared to spend. Now, I'm not an economist, so I'm not going to talk about the J-curve, but it is something you can look up and find out a little bit more. It tends to talk to economies and national finances, but it's just as relevant for business as well, as that you have to spend to get from point A to point B. You have to dip below a line. I'm going to finish on one note here, and it's sort of become my mantra around technology, and it's for anyone who's thinking of changing. Don't focus on technology being the outcome. It's the tool that will enable the outcome to happen, but it's never going to be the outcome. If you focus on it as your outcome, and Craig talked about this in there, you're going to get, talked about it from a fail fast perspective, you're going to get bogged down in the fact that that solution will never deliver what you need it to be, because you think it is the outcome, not the tool that enables it. So thank you very much. If you've got any questions or want to catch up on this later, look, just drop me a line on LinkedIn. I'm very, very active, and can be found under Anthony J. McMahon.
Oh, thank you very much, Anthony. Yeah, I'm off mute. Thank you very much for that. And yes, you are reasonably active on LinkedIn, helping get the information out there. Some really interesting discussions that I've been enjoying. So yes, it's a really good point. You know, people talk about tech being, or talk about focusing on what the outcome is, but tech is the enabler of the outcome, not the outcome. So let's all put together our hands for a round of applause. Anthony, thank you so much. Thank you for supporting and enabling us tonight. And thank you for that great share in terms of enablement. So round of applause. Thank you very much. Woo! Go Otago! All right. So do we have anyone who'd like to add to that perspective on the floor in terms of, you know, how New Zealand can actually be enabled through tech? Okay.
Sorry, I was just looking for my Hurricanes jersey, but it's in the wash. So
sure thing. Sure. Hey, thank you so much. So let's go to our next speaker, Aidan Keneally. So I'm just going to find Aidan. So Aidan spoke at one of our previous events to great accord with regards to sharing about VC model. So I invited Aidan back to talk about funding in general, because he's a entrepreneur who has exited his own multi-million-dollar exit, which is a tech company, and now works in the space of coaching people to achieve the same. And hang on, just get the right thing. Spotlight over there. There he is. Now I can see the guitar and the smile. So yeah, his last presentation around VC funding and how it works was mind-blowing, and everyone was asking questions. So to share with us around funding, and my thinking was, if someone wants to start up an idea, whether it be an app or agri-tech or the next milk formula with Ralph, then how do they get the money? Where do they start? How do they even talk to those sorts of organisations so they don't fall flat on their face? So Aidan, over to you, please, sir. And thank you.
Okay. Yep. Hi, everyone. Yeah, so I actually work with startup founders to help them build their businesses. I don't necessarily coach entrepreneurship or anything like that, but part of the insight and who I end up working with, they're usually foreign founders looking for insight on how to spread their ideas globally. And I do work and have invested in companies here that are taking New Zealand tech overseas. So that's where my mindset comes from. Now, I have sort of created a bit of an idea around if someone was to ask me in the pub, how would they build a bit of tech and how would they get funded? That's sort of the approach I've taken, if you're happy with that, Ryan. Otherwise, I'm open to talk about something else. So I know a lot of the conversation today has been around big tech ideas, vision, probably a bit more of a holistic approach. But my take here has been to say that a huge number of the big businesses that have come out of New Zealand have come from what the question that Ryan asked me was, which was, you're in the pub with your mates, I've got an idea, how do I go about getting it built? How do I go about funding it? So that's kind of the approach that I've taken. And it's a really good question to ask. So how do you do that in 5 minutes? It's quite hard, right? So if you're looking to answer this question of, I've got an idea, how do I build it? You really need to make a few assumptions to answer this correctly. So I'm assuming that this person doesn't have the requisite skills to build the solution. And that also means that they're not necessarily aware of how to fund it. And do apologize, there is a screaming baby in the corner here, so that is kind of putting me off a bit. Then the third assumption is that they don't necessarily have understand what the options to build and finance such software is, and they may not have the context about how to build such software. So those are the things I'm kind of framing when I talk about answering this question. And so we also look at it and say that when answering such a question, we need to think about whether we're building a prototype or a proof of concept, or if they're asking, how do I build TradeMe? How do I build Facebook? How do I solve agri-tech? Now I'm taking the approach of just saying, how do we build proofs of concept so that someone can go and get further funding from your angel investors or venture capital? So that's kind of where I've come from. Now, whenever we're looking at individuals trying to build or solve solutions through technology or through software, we have to think about the two forces that actually come to play. And that's the building and the financing of the build. And these two things are often completely interlinked and are usually proportional to each other, right? So that comes into this whole adage that I think a lot of people also get stuck on, which is that if you have an idea, it's not necessarily worth $1 million. If you don't have the ability to build the solution yourself and you need someone to help you build it, that's going to cost you something, right? So it's therefore more accurate probably to think about any idea that you're having or problem that you want to solve as costing $1 million, not being worth $1 million. So once we get our heads around that, we can actually sort of be a bit more proactive as to where to start. And in general, when we're trying to build proof of concept software, the first place and the best place to start is with you or the person. That's always sort of a confronting thing for people to hear, but in general, if you can start building or demonstrating how you're going to solve a problem, you're always going to be better off, okay? So the better your proof of concept can be, the better you can build your proof of concept, the more precise with your future execution you can be, and therefore the cheaper and better the future development of that product and that vision and that problem solving will be. And so whenever someone asks what's the best place to start with funding or developing a proof of concept software, the answer is always with you, yourself. If you can build a prototype, it doesn't cost you anything, and you can build it in a way that solves the problem as you see fit. There's a lot of people tonight that probably have sort of fit into that category and then have gone on to help try and fund it through demonstration of what they're trying to solve. So if the option then is, how do you upskill yourself to a point where you can take a piece of what you've done, or the option is, do you invest in paying someone to build that proof of concept for you, or do you invest the time and effort into upskilling yourself so you can build it yourself? And my answer to that is always the latter. You always invest in yourself to try and build these things first. But if you don't have the time, if you don't have the time to learn the skills and you've got the money to pay someone to do it, that is not a bad option, but it's always a better option to spend the time and money to learn how to build these things yourself so that you can make, if you've got the time. Okay. So then if you've got a proof of concept, or if you've got an idea and you want to fund it, say you've got you've got a concept there, you want to put some funding into it. One option actually is to try and do what we call sweat equity. It's a concept that basically says you can offer pieces of your business, assuming you have one, in lieu of payment. Now, there are challenges with that. What is fair value for the work done? You've got capital table considerations to think about, but then you also want to be engaging the right people, because you ultimately are deciding to tie people to your business in a way that you can't just naturally get rid of them by completing a transaction with cash. So finding someone that's completely 100% into your idea and they want to be involved means you've actually got a co-founder, so it's a good thing. But if you don't, it's very hard to get value out of sweat equity at such early stages. If you're trying to work out what the product you're building is and what the solution is, etc., it's not a great idea, but it is an option. Next port of call for funding. So let's make the assumption that you've kind of got the proof of concept, you've found a developer and she's willing to work with you. How do you fund it? You go to your friends and family. They will give you the best honest feedback depending on your relationship with them. Again, you need to be careful with how this is structured. Are they giving you a loan? Are they giving you equity? Are you giving them equity? All that just needs to be really clear before you take the money and before you spend it, so you don't have these ongoing problems that I often encounter with family problems. You owe me this, etc., and you've got this piece of software that you want to promote globally. Just creates the hassle that you don't need, right? I think finally what Ryan and I have sort of mostly been talking about grant applications. There's all sorts of money that's around, particularly post-COVID, for certain situations for people trying to solve certain problems, and it's worth talking to people about. Look at Callaghan Innovation. They have the R&D grant that's really quite powerful. It does require a co-payment, so if you invest in new technology, so you're building something that hasn't existed before, they will match funding for whatever you contribute. And that's hugely powerful. There are a whole bunch of Maori programs coming up. I've been involved in a couple of them. They're worth investigating if you fit the criteria. The real problem that we have with that funding system for people that want to give money and they have these purposes with their money is that it's often not really that easy to find. So anyone that wants to sort of try and solve how you connect money to ideas, that'd be very welcome. Final point, I know I'm going a bit over time here, but is actually talk to the angel investment community in New Zealand. There are some really interesting and pretty well connected people with money that can help develop bits of technology. Now, there are problems that you'll find with the angel community, but in general, a good angel will back a vision, they'll back a mission, they'll back the why, and they'll look at what you've done and sort of make an assessment as to how they can help and what you can do with that solution that you've built, whether you pay someone to build it or whether you build it yourself. And then they will back you to take you globally, right? And it's that's usually where these startup software things start from. I've personally done it. There's lots of people around, so you just have to Google angel networks and Google angel investors, get references, find out what they back, find out what they invest in, do your research. There are certain things you do need to avoid, which I won't go into here, but that's the place to start. So if you've got a proof of concept or if you've got an idea that you want to solve, it's learn how to do it yourself, fund it yourself, go for friendly money if you can, look at sweat equity if it's applicable, then government grants, private grants, research grants through the universities, and then look at angel investment once you've got something to demonstrate. So that's my chat. I know I went over a bit, but hopefully that solved the need there, Ryan.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for giving everybody a rundown. Always a pleasure and a very thorough rundown. So yeah, I think if anyone is having a bright idea, there's certainly a range of people they can go and talk to and test it out. And one small one that I found out about is the Akina Foundation, which is another almost same but separate to Callaghan Innovation, but is for social enterprise. So that may be another avenue, but of course, talking to an expert like yourself will uncover all what's under every stone in terms of funding. So let's give Aidan a round of applause. I'll just unmute everybody. So thank you very much, and I hope the baby's doing well. And we'll have birds and babies tonight, so it's a good wee thing. But let's go give Aidan a round of applause this evening. Thank you very much.
No worries.
Okay, now we have two more speakers, so let's get through them so that if you are hanging around, we're just over time. My apologies, bad time management on my behalf. We can get through them because they have the interesting goods to share. And we'll start with Hilton and go to Stephen to close. So let me get up to Hilton and unmute Hilton first of all, and then spotlight. So I just wanted to introduce Hilton.
Wow.
Yes, you're there. Just wanted to introduce Hilton briefly and before handing over. So Hilton is the, and you can correct me if I've got any of this wrong, the digital solutions manager for NZ Post, and has quite an illustrious career that mixes between technology and agency, predominantly in the technology side. I invited Hilton to talk here this evening around Pacific people in regards to, again, like Kay Marie spoke, around the lack of diversity in the tech industry and some of the amazingness that can happen once we get there. So I won't steal any further thunder. I'll hand over to you, Hilton, and you share your piece.
Thanks, Ryan. Hey, look, I think a lot of, the previous speakers, I think, someone else said the benefit of being one of the last speakers is you can kind of see what everyone has spoken about. And it's funny how some of the topics that were touched upon cross over onto what I'm going to cover. And I think one of the key things I bring to this is that, I think we all agree that there's a need for more role models, I'm speaking predominantly for the Pacific and Māori community. My heritage, I'm half Samoan, half Dutch, and I've lived in Samoa, so I understand, and I've been in New Zealand for about 15 years, so I understand how I'm very close to my Samoan side, so I understand the values, and I can tell you that having access to things like technology or just tech awareness is not something that's high on the value for them, because it's not an area that they're familiar with. And I think, again, like an earlier speaker spoke about, is that how do we educate the Pacific, Māori, and even just other nationalities around the fact that being part of tech isn't necessarily bound to being a developer or it's broader than that. The vast range of skills that are needed and different types of roles. So anyways, I think the thing for me is that put a few notes here, and it's really around some key areas I wanted to talk about, but at the same time I am quite keen to hear from everyone else is how do we make upskilling more than just about there's some amazing training programs out there. When you think about adults in the workforce, adults outside of the workforce, in-house mentoring programs, external groups like the Pacifica and IT. There's also areas where you can, for secondary students up to university, to Putoa, that helps mentor kids who are keen to pursue careers within the tech space, down to primary and intermediate students. And I've got a few names here, being part of the most recent PASI initiative, which was looking at primary students, which is really nice, primary to intermediate. Accelerating Aotearoa is another one, and then having funded programs. So I guess my point is if you're looking at training programs, we've got some well-established programs out there. How do we also? Oh, I can hear myself. How do we stretch that further to enable teachers as well? Teachers. So those who would like to pursue a career or have an interest in pursuing a career in education in the tech space, how do we put together programs that better support teachers in all, whether it be primary, intermediate, secondary, but how do we support them so that that it becomes an everyday thing, so that kids understand it in the class more than they do today. And again, this is across all DSAL schools because it's quite different anyways when you go to a DSAL 10 versus a DSAL 1. So making sure that irrespective of where these teachers sit, they have that knowledge. And then the other two areas was how do you reach out to our Pacific people and our Maori people? A good example that I've been part of is the CIDANZ, which is the Cook Islands Development Agency, New Zealand based in Mangere. And they work with, I don't know how many people are familiar with it, but you know, they play such an active role in just their community for Cook Islanders, and they have some of these mentoring programs come in there and speak to people. So, sorry, I know my time's coming up. So how do we reach out to our communities? How do we also make it easily accessible for families at home, whether it be through hardware, internet? So I guess and I know my time's up, if I'm going to leave you with anything, I think the thing is that the industry needs us, needs more mentors to help grow this interest for our Pacific and Maori people. So I think I'll leave it at that, Ryan, but I am quite keen to hear about any sort of ideas around how you can, I think, leverage these existing programs so that they're not just short stints, but instead it becomes quite a long life cycle, so that it's sort of progressed through from a young age, families all the way through to making a career out of it.
So I think in my involvement in working in this space, a lot of the feedback I got was, don't be a one-off. You've got to be a constant. So I was looking at doing a special event, a few quiet kororos or a few quiet tinaloas, and the feedback was, don't be a one-off. If you're going to do this, you've got to commit and be there for year in, year out. And I think the thing you're talking about is, how does it transgress from different ages, different schools through to adult? And, you know, I grew up with a mum who's now a CIO. So I had a Commodore 64 when I was knee-high to a grasshopper. So if I didn't have that, I would have grown up like most of my mates that didn't have tech in the house. And I don't know what my life would have been like. It would have been, I guess, like everyone else who doesn't. So if your kids don't have it, and they don't have someone who's tech-orientated in the house, they don't have it as a teacher, they don't have it anywhere, what role model do they have that says, this is what life could be like, this is where life could go for you? Funnily enough, I've ended up in tech after various parts of my career, so in different industries, from publishing to hospitality. So yeah, it's interesting that I ended up back in tech. So that's great. Thank you very much for that. So what we'll do is we'll give a round of applause to Hilton, and thank you for addressing the needs for Pacific people in terms of getting more Pacific people into tech and sharing role models like yourself and others. So let's go to unmute all and a round of applause. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Nice one, Hilton.
Hey. Right. So now we'll go to Stephen Clark, who has been patiently, and his kids have been patiently waiting as well. Sorry we run over time. And I know that those who are parents, this might be a little bit of a crush, so thank you so much. Now, I first met Stephen by accident. I was down at the All Government Showcase, and I was doing emceeing and running around shooting videos of different people. And Stephen, on a split-second demand, almost delivered an amazing rundown on digital and what NZTA are going to do around data. And with this being infrastructure in NZ, I thought between him and Sean, this would be a great mix between the transport aspect and the I guess the buildings in terms of smart cities and smart everything. But I think we've got quite a sort of open book, and what we're going to get tonight is from Stephen, CDO of NZTA. Over to you, good sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Tihe mori ora, ko te wake re rangi te waka, ko koich pecheren kentil te maunga, ko lochlong te awa, ko clan Cameron raura ko clan Mackenzie o ko iwi, ko maka cliri Raura ko clan conic no kentel te hapu, no te whenua ko te mana aho, ko Stefan Makunshi no Cleary aho, no reira tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. So apologies, I've probably confused everyone between my really terrible pronunciation of Te Reo and my use of Scottish Gaelic, a language almost eradicated through colonisation. So you won't hear that very often. But anyway, I'm really pleased to be able to come and speak to you here this evening. Folk in my office often say, we don't want to reinvent the wheel. But I have to disagree, because I genuinely believe that the pneumatic tyre was a fantastic innovation. I guess speed, efficiency and comfort aren't for everyone, but you know, there's no accounting for taste. So on that note, I'll be talking more about the data and analytics revolution within the existing transport tech capability. Most of the innovation in transport will be a product of data analytics that does not necessarily primarily require any new tech at all. And my belief is that the tech age will take over from the age that we've seen span from the 80s to present. And I think that's receding. It's finally time for the poor relations, the data and information people to take over. Will the tech guys hand over that mantle to the perpetual data and information poor cousins willingly? I don't know. Possibly controversial, but it's a future vision that I believe will occur. Sometimes in my day job, I feel it's almost as if the internet data revolution never happened. 10 years ago, we all got Wi-Fi, mobile devices, it became the norm, and it feels like my sector hasn't really caught up with that. We have the tech, we have the data, but we've never leveraged that data as an asset and realized the vast potential of our existing data assets and the billions of dollars we spend creating that data at a national level. With relatively modest expenditure analytics and a bit of artificial intelligence and machine learning, we could build digital twins. We could revolutionize the transport sector, just as data and analytics has done for the finance sector, online banking, e-commerce with online shopping, communications and media, Netflix, etc., not to mention things like Uber, Airbnb, Amazon, Facebook, etc. We take the data revolution for granted in our everyday lives, but as a sector, we're in the infancy of using data from the likes of Google Maps, TomTom, etc., to develop those smart city concepts and build a national digital infrastructure. As I say, we have the tech, we have the content. Now is the time to take that next step and extract the value through analytics and automation from that data. So it's about the mohio, not the hangaroa. And in New Zealand, we have no nationwide artificial intelligence or machine learning capability for transport and no national digital twin or joined up digital infrastructure model. So we do have to reinvent the wheel that we see in our everyday lives through the services that we get in our phones, but not in our work environment. But we mustn't repeat the missteps of the past where we think more about the tin or big system implementations and that will fix the problem. We need pixel-ready projects to support the shovel-ready projects. So now we should be thinking about pixel and shovel. It's no longer pick and shovel. And I say that we need to set the data free, set it free of the technology for data mobility to be able to enable physical mobility. We need to reinvent our existing assets, our data. The use of data, information and analytics are crucial to ensure we're making the best possible investment and planning decisions as a nation and as an infrastructure sector, even more so. The transport system doesn't just move people and goods from point A to point B, it improves our well-being and livability is a key enabler for a healthy economy. To manage the transport system, we need access to ever-increasing tsunami of data and information about all these aspects, as well as the analysis to inform our decisions as we mature into the creation of a genuine national digital infrastructure. So back to the contention that data will oust the tech sector as the next big disruptor. Big data approaches and analytics, which enable those artificial intelligence and machine learning concepts that I've spoken about, are fast superseding traditional technology innovation as being the primary force for disruptive change and innovation in the transport sector or indeed any other industry. Through delivering customer-centric data-driven services, think Uber and price comparison sites for travel and Google Maps even. Process automation and data discovery, think enabling semi-autonomous vehicles, scrim and LiDAR, data capture, intelligent transport systems, or the deep business insight across many dimensions through data modeling, predictive analytics, and digital twins. So think smart cities, investment benefits, and performance modeling, and the data visualization dashboards for real-time traffic management and public transport management. New data approaches such as these create and are enabled by a huge increasing volume of data collected and transmitted from portable electronic devices, vehicles, and infrastructure assets. There's an opportunity to shape this data into actionable intelligence and insights right across the public sector and the private sector, using our regulatory levers to get some of that private sector data into the public good, and ingesting open data to help enable a 360 view of our nation. This would have a range of benefits, not just for the transport sector. These include mashing the data up with climate change data, environmental data, and social data to not just realise the increasing safety and demand management that we need to deliver in the transport sector, but improving the planning and resilience of assets and addressing the digital divide, access to key services in health and education, and how we arrange our national investment and develop our regions. Although we still need to address the data ownership and cultural sovereignty concerns that as we as a sector and as government within that sector, the kaitiakitanga issues that we really need to think through, and our privacy concerns as we transition through this revolution. And hello, spoiler alert, we're not brilliant at this. It's something that we need to improve on. But in closing, roading makes up to 33% of New Zealand's public asset base. There's a lot of value to be unlocked. To realise these opportunities, we will develop a national digital infrastructure as a digital twin system with associated protocols, standards and operating procedures that allows information to flow smoothly and in real time to link the transport system to its users, the people who travel on the network, the citizens impacted by it, and those who need that interactivity to work to keep it safe and effective. So I guess my vision is, what I've just set out as my concluding statement. These things don't exist. We need to create them, and we should do it sooner rather than later to unlock that $1 billion opportunity that's sitting waiting for us that we haven't grasped yet. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, katoa.
Well, I just unmuted myself. Thank you so much. I am so glad I've got this recorded because I'm going to have to watch it a couple of times. You've got a lot packed in there. That is a pretty... No, that's fine. That is a great... that's great. That's what we're looking for. So what I thought we could do is unmute all, first of all, for a round of applause to thank Stephen for that and time and effort. Thank you very much. Everyone there with me? Or have I got you? You are.
Yeah.
And for speaking both Te Reo and Scottish Gaelic.
Scottish Gaelic.
Yep.
There's only about 3,000 native speakers left.
Wow.
In Scotland, there's about 10,000 in Canada.
Wow. Yes, so the colonisation is a far-reaching issue and challenge. Coming back to today, thank you for giving us the rundown. So does anyone have anything that they'd like to ask Stephen or add to that discussion? And before we, yes, thanks, Harriet, before we go into a breakout room, and of course, we are 25 minutes over our time. So if anyone does need to leave, don't feel as though you're being rude. My apologies for not keeping the event on time. But yeah, if someone from the floor would like to add to that, fire away.
I was just going to say that in our breakout room earlier, and Stephen touched on what he was talking about, but it's really about the massive amounts of big data that we have that we don't know what to do with, and how, as a community, as a country, what can we do to work together to use it for goodwill, other than countries, i.e. China, that may use it for ill will. So, you know, how is it with all the data that we have? And it's massive. How do we collect it? Well, we are collecting it, but how do we know what to use it? And then what do we do with it?
That's a really good question. A few years ago when I was working in the machine learning space from a sales and marketing point of view, I said to a few people, New Zealand has some of the best data sets, especially health, but most data sets we have are some of the best in the world because of our small but representative population. And I said, what if it was actually election time, the last election, right? And I said, what if we could get all the data from all the different areas and write a model, an algorithm that enabled us to work out what would happen if we made a decision. So, for example, one of the policies was we'll give first-year university free to anyone who's leaving school and going to university. So, okay, easily you can count the number of kids in the 7th form and go, that could cost us X amount of million or billion. But what else could happen? Oh, well, the other sort of decisions are that there could be no one going into the trades because they all went into academic. But there's just one small example, but the idea is that the model would actually answer that question. And funnily enough, just about 2 months ago, IBM, and I think it's through the Watson program, have released a what-if algorithm. So what if we did this? But of course, those who know about machine learning know that you need to have A, the data, B, the domain expert who can be working with the person who writes the algorithm or the model, and then you need to train it and test it. And touching back on one of our earlier subjects, there have been a lot of trials around court rulings. So using machine learning to create fair and just court rulings and speed up the court system. And of course, by machine learning, it became biased and put more people of colour in prison than not. So they had to retrain the machine not to learn off history, but to learn off the rule book. There's my little piece. So if anyone else would like to add to that, because it's sort of along the lines of what you raised, by all means, or we can jump into a breakout room. So I've just unmuted everybody, sorry. Just realised you're unmuted. So nothing more to add to that picture. What I might do is, I'll just pop us into a breakout room. There's only about 20 of us left because we obviously run over time, but this opportunity to have a bit of a chat and a share. And then we'll come back for a quick 5-minute roundup. What my question for you to think about and discuss is, if we have this 20 billion and we've got all these different elements that we're aiming to share tonight, how can we best put New Zealand to work in a tech space with tech thinking? So let me just go and create the breakout rooms.
Hey, Ryan,
Yep.
Craig wants to say something.
Oh, great.
Thank you. I just had a quick question. So it's something I've been wondering a bit now, and part of my dreams are coming true in that, it looks like after COVID we'll be moving to 4-day work weeks or more working from home at least. But in far as transport, it's a really difficult thing to solve because especially not me, but people with children, but so much of the traffic and everything we get is based on people dropping their kids off at school, the time that malls open, why malls need to open at 9 a.m. I have no idea, except for maybe old people getting some of their walks in early in the morning in an indoor environment. Since everyone's thinking about change, what can we do to, if you are having to commute to work, what can we do to change that and make that a better experience for everyone? I first was going to ask about when's the train from the train to the North Shore coming, but I'm not sure that would solve everything either. But I'm just curious because I think that if we could somehow change society or change the way where we time things with how everyone lives, and certainly say, hey, not everyone needs to open up at 9 a.m. Could open at 10 or 11 and actually close later in the day to where people could actually go after work and be buying things and encouraging the economy, that sort of thing. It's always something been back in the mind. I thought since we had someone from the transport agency, I thought I'd ask.
Yeah, we got you. So just a really quick one before anyone adds in there, is that it's been talked about, staggering work start times, or and I thought myself today, what about staggering school times? But coming back to Stephen and Sean's digital twin and the ability to use data, is that's where we could use the what if and go, if we've got everything digitized, we could run the model of what if we made school times stagger so that they had these schools start at this time, these times, and knew that the student that comes to one school, or where all the students actually come from, so the model could create what the traffic flow and traffic impact would be. And then we could decide, not instead of saying, let's make all the schools in the north of the city open at 9:30 and all the schools in the south open at 10:30, is actually select what time the school should open based on how that will affect the traffic as one thing, and then be able to send a message to all of those people with the click of one button, because everything's connected and automated through the digital twin of the whole shebang. But yeah, I'm sure some other people got some other ideas.
It's partly about mode shift as well, and if you look at places where they've thought about this and they've built in, they've decided not to make the motor vehicle the primary mode of transport. So if you look at somewhere like Delft or Copenhagen, where 60% of all trips in the city are on bike or on foot, because they build safe bicycle routes and walk routes so people can actually do it. And kids would walk to school or cycle to school if it was safe to do so. I mean, what's been really interesting looking at the metrics and my job over the last few weeks is that the mass spike in people cycling into work when the traffic was low. As soon as the traffic went up again, people stopped cycling because they didn't feel it was safe. Absolutely. And that's because we don't provide them with safe cycle routes. So mode shift as a mindset, and it's how you invest. It's not necessarily how you better enable traffic flows. It's how you enable people to get out of their cars in the first place.
Yeah, and I absolutely agree. Like with the cycle routes, I mean, it is a bit trickier here versus like somewhere compared to say like the Netherlands where it's all flat, and they cycle everywhere. But it is doable. But I would like to just say that with everyone with companies now looking at being much more willing to kind of change people's work schedules, whether it be from home or different hours or whatever have you, we should have big data analytics forming something to say, okay, well, this is how things can change as far as work hours. This works for this area. This works for another area. Can we get NZ?
So what you're talking about is a mass coordination of change.
A mass coordination of change.
Not sure how that works.
Like in Paris, if you've got an number in your car registration, you can go in. I think it's Tuesdays and Thursdays, and if you've got odd numbers and even numbers have 2 days each.
Yeah.
So and that's why what happens is rich people buy 2 cars with 2 different registrations so they can drive them all week around.
So if we just hold a second, we've got a young lady with her hand up, so we'll go to young Miss Dyer. What would you like?
Yeah. This is Olivia. Look, I'm Anthony. I work for Auckland Transport as an analytics business partner, and look, we're talking about these kind of things every day. In fact, I had a meeting today with someone in regards to occupancy and how we can change behaviour. Also, active modes, being able to influence people and help them change their behaviour instead of taking the car, like you said, cycles and so on. We did a proof of concept last year. So our GIS team and our business intelligence team came together and actually collaborated together. And they came up with a model of how we could actually do exactly what we've just been talking about. And we also looked at things like Strava data to actually understand where cyclists were actually going, and then looking at our proposed cycle lanes and seeing if it matched and so on. We also looked at where there has been serious injury, a death or serious injury, and how we can actually look at reducing that to a zero, and maybe creating a cycleways and so on. But there's a lot of influencing on my part, which I need to do. I've only been in this role for about 6 months, and like most of the business are talking about insights and analytics and data-driven decisions. In fact, we've just hired another couple of data scientists, and we're looking into the whole predictive analytics and machine learning, and being able to help our planners and everyone within AT to actually work with data-driven decision and make data-driven decisions here. So there's definitely a lot of room for collaboration and being able to work together and bring change about. Yeah, especially after COVID-19, because people have been able to be more flexible now. So yeah, exactly.
I know before the pandemic, so many people would have loved to see that. It is a hard one based on family and circumstances, but if you've got both like transport willing to change some of the ways they do things, and then also small businesses and large businesses being able to change their flexible working hours, and then they're already talking about that. I mean, like my partners already they've already said, well, you don't have to come in on Mondays, you might occasionally have off Wednesdays, each week, that sort of thing. There's definitely room. I mean, if we're going to change something, and we all know it's a problem, we've all known it's been a problem for years, because no one likes to just go out in the morning and jump on the highway, because it's just, even at 6:30, it's jam packed, and it's just it's a poor experience.
You're preaching to converted there, Craig. Now I want to hand over to Sean because Sean's been waiting since Olivia. So we'll come back to Sean and give everyone a wee shot there. So
we were doing this today. We have massive VR city twins we use for Wellington. We were pulling on all the parking data, the expenditure data, the occupancy data from the buses, and looking at how this was changing and how they related together. And what, going to Stephen's point, is insane is I find it much easier to work with my colleagues in Helsinki and Paris than I do in Auckland and Christchurch, simply because we can do it and we use European standards, so we can interchange with Europe. But we have trouble with our with the other cities, and that's the real opportunity, because everybody should be able to do this, not just us.
That's very interesting. So I'm going to jump in now and compare to the health sector. So Auntie Helen sold off the National Health Computer, and Paxis had a 4-year deal, and then after that they put the prices up, which drove all the DHBs to separate, do their own thing. And that's why now we have every DHB with a repeat of the same but different. And there was a point where I think there was a Microsoft upgrade, and this is going back in 2005, 2006, before open standards, which is separate to different to open source. Mm-hmm. And essentially, anyone running a system that was older than a certain flavour couldn't access their records. And of course, this is like people's health records. It's almost illegal to not be able to access them. So that's where open standards came from. Not that they're necessarily adopted, but my mum is allergic to antibiotics. So if you gave her amoxicillin, you'd kill her. And when she was out of her Otago region at one point, she could have been killed by a health worker. She was in a car accident, dead. And that's just absolutely amazing for New Zealand. So I can only imagine having that insight, what all the other industries are like and suffering. And I think to Craig's point, how do we solve this? It's not the human side of Me Too or Black Lives Matter, but it's this bigger problem and solution that will create a huge amount of benefit for all the humans that live in this country if everything just frickin' worked together a lot more easily.
Well, I was just going to say, as you know, Ryan, I'm a big mental health supporter, and I just feel that, the benefit of having flexible working schedules and, personally, certain times I want to be in the office, other times I want to work from home, and I can get different types of things done based on those scenarios. And I think everybody should have that opportunity. And for years, I've just dealt with even IT managers that, don't understand at all. And it's all about, oh, I'm sorry. It's the perception of you being in the office and that you're actually working. Well, who gives a flying fuck? Sorry. But about the perception, why don't you base it on actual data of what your actual people are doing?
This goes back to Hiria's example at the digital inclusion event. She spoke about the fact that they as a family didn't put it in the census because there were 9 people living in a 4-person state home, but they'd lived there and they saw that as their home and they didn't want to be pulled out of it because there are 9 people. Then Kāinga Ora bring out a request for proposal for exactly what she makes, but added in the CO2 measure so that it would measure how many people in a place regardless of what they put on a census. And what it is I don't know what the best way to say it is, but instead of working for the people and helping the people, which is what state housing or any type of thing like that is for, it actually works against the people and makes the people work around the system, and therefore what a waste of time and effort and money. Like if it was me, I'd just break the bloody thing. Broken again. So does that mean that the government would go and spend millions of dollars replacing broken units, whatever they were, whatever they're measuring, as a result of them putting in not necessarily stupid, but putting in measures that cause the situation? We need to make anything that's status quo that's not actually really working and not doing something that's positive for the people should be changed. Me Too, Black Lives Matter, home centres that aren't CO2 orientated, you name it, the huge list is there. So I think the big question is how to tackle it. But what I'm going to suggest is it's 7:43. My wife just got home today out of 10 days recovery from brain surgery. I'm going to call it 44 minutes late. And I thank you all for your input and time this evening and your patience, especially for going over. It seems like we always get to the really good stuff at the end when we've got to go, so I apologise for that. But take it away, and I'll get the video up and timestamp it so it's easy to find all of this evening's wonderful speakers. And thank you for your contribution, like Sean, who's the last person standing, and Craig, Anthony, everyone who's chipped in, and Ohri. So thank you very much, and I will say ka kite anō to everyone for now.
Here's Ryan. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.
As always, appreciate it.